good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, whichever part of the world you are joining us from. Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade welcomes you all for today's exciting Global Sustainable Development Summit 2023. I am Ananya Banerjee Chatterjee, the R&D and Communication Officer for GCPIT and your host for the evening. Sustainable development is a guiding principle for achieving human development goals while preserving natural resources systems capacity to provide the natural resources and ecosystem services that the economy and society rely on. These words encapsulate the core philosophy of the summit in an era of rapid industrialization and environmental concerns. The pursuit of sustainable development is not just an option but a necessity. It is a vision that seeks to balance the well being of humanity with the preservation of our planet's resources. The Sustainable Development Goals have set ambitious targets that necessitate a transformation in both public and private sector activities. This transformation involves new businesses models, innovative technologies, and more sustainable and ethical businesses practices. It opens up new opportunities for the private sector with MSMEs poised to benefit significantly. Sustainable business models are projected to unlock more than $12 trillion in global GDP, creating 380 million jobs, with more than half of them located in developing countries. Opportunities for MSMEs have been identified under each SDG and the Global Sustainability Development Summit 2023 will focus on showcasing business examples and SDGs supporting good practice initiatives relevant to MSMEs. Let's start the summit. So I would like to call our first speaker, Ms. Ruby Critias, board member for Green Agriculture Youth Organization. Her field of study is entrepreneurship and mentorship for youth development. She is passionate about youth development and community sustainability by using climate change as her advocacy tool because we can all play a part to save the environment. Welcome, Ms. Ruby, and over to you.
Thank you once more for this meeting, and it comes at a time when we are really trying to tackle climate change. My name is Ruby Kritikos. I'm from Zambia. I'm with the Green Agriculture Youth Organization in Zambia, and I'm a climate advocate, and I'm also a World Bank Youth Summit Delegate 2023, and I'm also currently a zero carbon climate advocate in Zambia. So basically, I'm here to present to you my topic under sustainable food and why it is important to provide food security for our country. We are now looking at a situation where food security has become an issue globally and as well as in my country, Zambia, and Africa as a whole. We have seen skyrocketing prices in terms of food prices, as well as cost of living going high. So now what are we supposed to do when it comes to providing food security for our rural areas? We are now talking about looking at how can we be sustainable? What programs can we put in place in order to provide sufficient food? Because right now, when we are hit with climate change, food becomes an issue because there is little or no food due to climate change. We have now continued to suffer heat waves. Currently, right now in Lusaka, it is our summer. As I'm talking to you right now, it's 31 degrees Celsius. So we're already seeing the impacts of climate change, not only in Zambia, but around the world. But how do we now, we already have this situation in our current position, and how do we adapt to climate change? So that is why we need to put up a lot of measures in terms of climate change and being able to work with partnerships from government, civil society, as well as leaders around the world to be able to now find solutions and ways to be able to tackle food security. Food security is an important part of the survival of human life, in short. Without food security, we cannot survive. And therefore, it is important that we tackle food security first before we tackle any other aspect if we're looking at our economy. And definitely, we also need to put up measures in place, especially in rural communities, by providing tools and
I think we lost her due to some connection issues. So as of now, then I'd like to call our second speaker, Dr. Toyosi Craig, energy specialist, Raw Hill. He is a Nigerian-born, accomplished energy professional specializing in energy access, electricity network, decarbonization within the mining sector with a global reputation for innovation. He holds numerous accolades, including awards for his groundbreaking work in solar energy and food processing. His passion for energy access, sustainability, and human empowerment has led to the development of influential systems and policy instruments benefiting both public and private institutions across multiple sectors and nations. Welcome, Mr. Craig, and over to you.
I said, I think Ruby is back. Do you want that to continue or should I continue?
Ruby, is the connection okay? Please unmute yourself.
It's okay.
It's okay then.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. So, Dr. Craig, can she proceed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like I was thank you, Dr. Greg, for the opportunity once more. We are now trying to tackle promoting our local foods, especially our homegrown local foods, and of course our wild fruits. We have really neglected in terms of the consumption and nutritional content when it comes to our local and wild fruits. We have now seen quite an increase in terms of market, in terms of organic products being on the market. We have now, I would speak an example of the amarula fruit. The amarula fruit is found mostly in Africa, and we have seen it grow in terms of the value chain it has had, from just a fruit to wines to alcohol to oils to food products that are now on the market. How best can we now bring an economic input in communities that have these type of fruits? Definitely, we are looking at putting an investment and resources for rural communities to be able to either harvest these fruits, let government find markets for our local foods to be sent out and bring income to local communities so that they can thrive, tackle hunger and as well as poverty. We are also looking at ways to improve our food security in terms of our storage. How are we storing our food? Long gone are the days when we used to put our food in silos, but now we need more technology to support that, especially when it comes to rural areas. We need to find ways and improve technology in order to have a mechanism of making sure that food does not go bad, because when you harvest, you have a vision of having more at a later date. But when you have that food at that particular time and you have not put in measures in order to preserve it, that food goes to waste. And whatever capital or income that has been pumped into your project, whether it is farming or whether it is fishing or other sectors we can talk about, we are now going to find a problem, because you find farmers having issues in terms of not giving back loans, or you find that certain companies may come in giving food or seed subsidies in order to sustain farmers, but at the end of the day, the project that is there won't be implemented because whatever focus that they had in giving communities seeds will not be available due to climate change and other sectors that we have seen climate change affecting us. And definitely sustainability is a tool for us to grow our economy, especially now that climate change has come to us. We need to find an opportunity to face climate change and see what we can do at a local level, at an international level, as African countries, in able to be sustainable, and as well look at how we can empower youth through sustainable projects. We have now seen quite a number of youths now going into organic farming. We have now seen a number of youths going into green energy, of creating briquettes. All those are innovations that can help assist families or rural communities in order to be sustainable. But if they do not have finances and resources to be able to cater at a larger scale, then we are not helping our communities. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Uvi. Thank you for joining. Now, I would like to ask few questions. What role does education play in improving food access and making healthier choices available to all?
Definitely education plays a critical role because we have to know how to preserve our food. And for us to know how to preserve our food, we need to be given the knowledge. And once we're given the knowledge, we're able to implement that knowledge. For example, we will now learn how best ways in order to preserve our food, in order to package our food for it to stay and have a longer shelf line, either whether it is at community level, whether it is at commercial level. We need ways in order to technology actually to assist us as well in food preservation, in food preparation, as well as food processing.
Great. So thank you. My next question is, how can we ensure that nutritious food is accessible to everyone regardless of their income or location?
Yes, most definitely. We need to wage quite well when we're talking of nutrition. Nutrition at the end of the day is a basic need for everybody. It doesn't matter where you're from or where you're coming from. Definitely, we need to work hand in hand with government and CSOs in order to come on board and help us to implement sustainable projects which will last a lifetime in order to give nutrition and sustainable livelihoods in our community, as well providing health and well-being for our communities. We need to look at innovative ways, and of course we need more partnership to come on board in order to be able to be given either seeds at a subsidized rate or price in order to be able to have access to food at a lower price.
Thank you. My next question is, what are the key challenges in providing affordable and accessible food options to underserved communities?
Yes, we are looking at different nutritional values that can be an addition to our communities. Of course, some of the challenges you will find that maybe certain people are not aware of certain nutritional values in certain foods. I'll give an example of either cassava. I'll give an example of either tubers. They are looked upon as, because of how our community has seen them grow and and B, we find them to be able to be either low-class food, so which is difficult. So we are only used to having either maize as and rice or wheat as our local produce in terms of food consumption, and we find other foods such as sorghums and millet not necessarily a high nutritional level content, but we see them as not beneficial to the nutritional value that someone can get. So those are some of the challenges.
Thank you. Next question is, are there innovative solutions or technologies that can help improve food access to both urban and rural areas?
Yes, they are. We are looking at finding simple solutions, especially when it comes to rural areas, impacting how to naturally dry the and be able to manage it in a conducive manner and be able to use it later on without it going to waste. And of course, we're looking at areas. We are looking at already technology that has come in, which is able to process foods like cassava into flour. So meaning the cassava stays at a longer shelf line, only that you don't eat it in a whole, but you can use it in powder form.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, how can governments, businesses, and non-profit collaborate to address food deserts and their food insecurity?
Uh,
I think we lost Miss Ruby, but since I'd like to thank you, Miss Ruby, for answering all my questions. So once again, I would like to call our second speaker. She is here.
Yes, government needs to put up measures in order to be able to preserve as much grain as possible, especially when we have a bumper harvest. It is vital that whatever it is that we harvest, especially in Africa, we use a lot of rain-fed agriculture, and therefore it is important that government puts up a lot of silos in order to preserve quite a lot of grain in able to be used at a later date. And this will also cushion the prices in terms of either milling meal to be lowered down, because the commodity is available and there won't be need to outsource the commodity outside in able to sell it back into the country.
Thank you, Ms. Ruby. My next question is, what role does education play in improving food access and making healthier choices available to all?
So definitely education does play a critical role, because we are now taught how to have a balanced diet using vegetables, using grain, additional value to what we are always used to. Mostly like in Africa, when you have a lot of meat, it means you're healthy, but you're not. But we're now trying to change the mindset and say you can even eat vegetables and fruits and still be healthy. So educating the younger generation, especially school-going children, that you do not have to be healthy in order to have chicken or beef. You can be healthy when you eat your grains, your greens, your vegetables, and whatever local fruits that are there, because they'll still give you the same nutritional value that you can get by eating other food sources.
Thank you. Next question is, how can we reduce food waste and redirect surplus food to those in need to improve food accessibility?
Definitely, when we're talking about sustainability, we need to talk about consumption and as well as zero waste. That is why it is important that whatever it is that we produce, we should have mechanisms in order to either store it or preserve it. Because when none of these two are put in place, that is where you have a lot of wastage of food and grain, which can be used in rural areas, this is now when we're talking that when we have surplus, can it be reprocessed? Can it be repackaged so that the end user can be able to use it? It may not be in form as a whole, but it could be either in powder form, it could be in dry grains, and only then are we able to make sure that people in rural areas still continue to have food, even when there is a disaster like either droughts or if there's a disaster of floods, you can still go back to the same food that has been stored and be used and have continued nutritional value added onto whatever crops that you may be used to eating.
Thank you, Ms. Ubi. And my last question for you is, are there any successful models or case studies from around the world that demonstrate effective strategies for making food more accessible?
Yes, you look at China and of course India. India has used quite a lot of its natural organic fruits and vegetables. It is now in form of flour. It is now in form of sweets. You can find it in form of cookies. We are now talking of value addition to a particular product. I'll talk of tangerines. Tangerines are usually local and wild fruits that can be consumed as a fruit, but now we are now seeing them into beauty products. We're now seeing the tangerines into juices. We're now seeing them into powder. We're now seeing them into a lot of medicinal products, natural medicinal products that can be consumed.
Thank you, Ms. Ubi, for joining and answering all my questions so efficiently. Thank you.
Thank you.
So once again, I would like to call our second speaker, Dr. Toyosi Craig, energy specialist, Royal. He is a Nigerian-born, accomplished energy professional specializing in energy access, electricity network, decarbonization within the mining sector with a global reputation for innovation. He holds numerous accolades, including awards for his groundbreaking work in solar energy and food processing. His passion for energy, access, sustainability, and human empowerment has led to the development of influential systems and policy instruments benefiting both public and private institutions across multiple nations. Welcome, Dr. Toyosi.
All right, thanks for having me.
Dr. C, could you please show your PPT in slideshow mode?
Is that better?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Yeah, good evening from Australia and glad to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to speak on this. So my name is Toyosi, as has been said, and thanks to Ruby for doing justice to that topic. I think I'm interested in speaking more about hearing more about the agricultural opportunities in Zambia. So my topic is a bit different, but it's still on SDG. So I'll be speaking on the mining industry and the Sustainable Development Goal. And today I'll just speak about SDG and mining, our story, and then what we need. Since this is a global platform for international trade and what the mining needs as we achieve these SDG goals together. So these are the goals which Anaya has spoken about generally, and then bringing it home. There are like 17 goals, right? And when you hear mining, what comes to people's mind is something dirty, something destroying the environment. These are the people that we want off. These are the people we want off. But the truth is, we often say everything we need in life is either grown or mined. So that's why I said Ruby has done justice to the growing part. So I'll be doing justice to the mining part. And what do I mean? In order to achieve any of these goals at all, we need mining. And I think I'll take us through that story. Our mining sector is needed to accelerate the progress towards this SDG because either you're talking about the industry, you're talking about the renewables, you're talking about the tools you need in order to farm. All those things are mined, and we still need to mine them And to put in perspective, the copper that we need to mine in order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and climate goals and Paris goals by 2030 is 50,000 times more than the copper we have mined in the last 5,000 years. So that means we need mining. And then industry itself, all the industry itself requires raw materials and metal, which I've mentioned, especially when it comes to transition to low carbon technology, and even fertilizer that we need is also mined. The nitrous, the phosphorus, all these are found under the ground. And of course, like I said, essentially everything needs to be mined. So I'll just bring it home to where I work. We work in the iron ore exploration. So I'm saying a decarbonized world needs steel. Even though steel is the highest recycled metal on earth, it still needs a lot. 97% of it can be recycled, but we still need to mine a lot, like I mentioned. If you need to do the electric cars, the body of the cars are not plastic. We need to mine whatever we need in order to get those body of electric car. The lithium itself for the battery is mined. Whatever we need to do, even the tablets we need for the education to go into the villages, so any of the sustainable development goal is mined. The pipe you need to get clean water to the local person is mined. So I want you to look at mining from that aspect and just see like we are also working towards decarbonization. But the idea is, how do we do it better? That it doesn't really do more damage to the environment than causing havoc. So I'll give an example. In a typical mining company like ours, though we are mining companies, but 75% of our emissions or diesel usage comes from our transport, the haulage system. Because when you mine, the mining company, for example, in Zambia, is in the Copper Belt region, which is a bit far from where Lusaka is. So most times, or where the ports are, when you mine, you have to transport them all the way to where you are going to export them, which means mining company actually contribute more to the global change, climate change, and things like that in transportation, more than even mining itself, right? So when we are looking at decarbonizing, or when we are looking at contributing towards achieving the sustainability development goals, we look at how we can reduce our emissions specifically from transportation. 40% of our emissions, for example, come from our trucks. The trucks that move the mining products from where it's mined to where it's taken. And then if you had the rail itself, the rail in which you have to truck the material from one port to the other. So that's why I put this slide. And the things we're doing is in terms of renewable energy, which is also part of the development goal. This is generally done. I'm sure you know about this. I won't mention much. I'll speak more about what I feel we need more. So we are trying to reduce emissions in our rail, because all big mining companies have their own rail tracks, we have their own trains that transport the product. But the issue is they are still all running on diesel. The technology is not there yet to run effectively on electric train, because these areas are places where there is no power itself. So in a forum like this, we're speaking out there that people that have technologies that are working, that they feel they can work, they can reach out. And we need to come together as a world, not segregating some people. We all need to come together as one in order to solve this problem. We are moving from our general locals, we're trying to move to the electric trains, or we are putting batteries on some, but the technology is not really there. We'll start with what we have, but we hope to get more. Remember, I said 40% of our emission is from our trucks, which means while we know that we need mining, I've established that we need mining to get to SDG. But how do we reduce the emissions from our truck? Because we don't want to create another problem while solving one problem, right? So it's the simplest way to reduce carbon emission anywhere, they will tell you, is electrify. Just change whatever diesel you're using to electricity, and then you can deal with electricity using renewables or whatever you want to use, right? So we need electric cars. The technologies are not really available. I mean, electric trucks, the technologies are not really available because these trucks are heavy. Some of them carry 300 tons. They are heavy, they are huge. Some of them are like 2 or 3 story building when they are standing, if you want to compare them to a house. So they are massive. So we are working towards it. The original equipment manufacturers are also working towards it. But in a forum like this, ideas are welcome. People who are working on it, and if you know you have something or technology that is working, we are open to working together to achieve these SDG goals. And that's why I just want to end my presentation with this slide. One of the goals is goal 9 that speak about industry innovation and infrastructure. And I just mentioned here that in order to build and promote an inclusive and sustainable industrialization, as is written in the SDG, we need to come together, all the sectors, and then from there, we can take it to a better place. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Tosi. Thank you. And now I would like to ask you a question to you as well. My first question is, how can the mining industry in Africa contribute to the achievement of SDG 1 no poverty by creating jobs and fostering economic development in mining regions?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very valid question, because one of the things we found out is where there is resources, it's often known to where there's always chaotic problems. So one of the things that the mining industry can do in order to encourage, which we are doing, and some people are also doing, but needs to be done more and needs to be done well, it's local development, like local skill acquisition. Because people who are around that area, they don't want to just be. I also come from Nigeria where there's oil and gas, and you find places in which the multinationals come and we just explore and go away. So the best way to do it is partner with local industry, tell your story the way we do and the way I've mentioned here. Tell people this is what we need. Are there local people that can do it? If there are none, we can bring in experts, train the locals, and we can partner. And with that, they feel as part of it. And that's how to increase employment around those regions.
Thank you. My next question is, what environmental and social challenges does the mining industry in Africa face in aligning with SDG 12, responsible consumption and production, and SDG 15, life on land?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of talk on that. If I come from the angle of which there's a lot of policy in some countries, but it's not as developed as others. There's a lot of policies that mining companies have to follow in some countries. And what I would just encourage African countries, we need to stand on our feet when it comes to policies and when it comes to environmental issues. So the first thing is you need to set a standard, right? And you don't compromise that standard no matter what. For instance, there's rush into lithium and cobalt now in Africa. It's like the new gold, right? So the African Ministry of Mining and Minerals needs to come together and develop a strategy in which we don't end up being like the initial first generation mining that has happened. So that's my encouragement to them. But what the mining industry is doing on how to contribute to that is what I've mentioned in my slide already, in terms of it's hand in hand, like it's hand in hand. So we have been very efficient because you have a lot of, you can lose your license by not manufacturing in the right order or not following the global standards. So, and all mining companies are now sitting down. Before they don't used to sit down, but now we're sitting down because it's not a global challenge. Like Ruby mentioned, you can see the temperature rising and issues around the world. So it's a roundtable discussion that has started, and I know we'll achieve more cleaner methods of extraction.
Thank you. My next question is, how can African governments and mining companies collaborate to ensure that mining extraction aligns with SDG 7, affordable and clean energy, by promoting sustainable energy practices?
It's an interesting question because I still answered a similar question somewhere yesterday. The truth is we need power. And I said where these resources are always where there's no power. So most likely you want to use the diesel to power it, which means another level of emissions. So one of the things we can do is reduce the pressure on mining companies when they are using solar or something like that, right? Encourage them to use renewable energy as much as they can, and then come together. If the company can build the infrastructure, it makes it easy. If they build the infrastructure in terms of power lines and the rest of it, it's easy to then put in clean energy. into those systems. But if we have to start, there's a lot of cleaner ways of doing things now, whether I was going to use gas. But it's a discussion, like I mentioned. And I think if we sit down on the round table and we know that the idea is people come first, environment comes second, and then money comes last. If we can make that our priority and our strategy, then I think every mind, because I mean, it's profitable. So if you really want to make profit, this is what we want in our country. This is what we want to achieve, and then be realistic about it. Don't set goals that are not achievable. So I think that's the way forward.
Thank you. Next question is, what strategies can be implemented to ensure that mining activities in Africa contribute to SDG 5 gender equality by empowering women in the mining workforce and addressing gender related issues in mining communities?
It's a big deal because it has been a male-dominated industry for a long time. So encourage, number one, bullying and gender discrimination is real. So number one thing is for African government and even the mining companies operating in Africa to encourage reporting and don't crucify people who report. So the few females that are working, if they have issues, they must have a venue to report it, and offenders need to be punished and punished well, right? That's number one. Number two is setting the goal, setting target. The morning I work, luckily the chairman is a female, so it's a big deal. So there's a lot of female, but that needs to be encouraged. And then it has to be intentional. Do projects, do programs, go to schools, specifically do projects that has to do with female, encourage them to be part of it. There's a lot of value that women brings, especially to male-dominated field, because you have been looking at it one-sided. And you know how talented and intelligent women are. They just look at something and they can turn it around. I believe in women so much. So I personally encourage that because we've seen it work. If you have tried the same thing over and over again, why not try something different? So encourage them. Also partner with universities, right? Where you can make internship available to women. That's how to get them. Encourage high school students. Bring them on to mind. People like to see things because they don't know. There's a lot of imaginations, or people don't even know that it's a conducive environment for male and female. If you get to mine camps, it's a complete, like it's a self-contained house that people live, where women will thrive and everybody will do well. So that's what I will encourage us to do to achieve it.
Thank you. My next question is, how can the mining sector in Africa support SDG 9 industry, innovation and infrastructure by investing in technology and innovation to enhance efficiency and sustainability in mining practices?
Thank you. I think that was my slide. That was my last slide. So for SDG now, I think it's straightforward. Innovation, we need it. It's needed. The technologies are not there. The mining industry has money. That's no doubt. But we need realistic partnership with the academics, with the local industries. And that's what I'm saying. Highlight the challenges and have a discussion. So innovation is real. We cannot achieve SDG without innovations. We can't do the same thing, same way. We'll land where we are. We'll keep on promoting SDG 30, then it will be 50, to be 60, till we all go and pass it to our children. So we just need to have that discussion, have a program. There are a lot of mining companies all over the world, which I encourage people to do in Africa, having an innovation hub, which you have to sponsor students or research people, and you do it in-house. You pick the technology that are needed for you, and then most importantly, share the knowledge among yourself, and then we can grow together.
Thank you. Next question will be, what measures can be taken to ensure that the revenue generated from mining activities in Africa contributes to SDG 4 quality education, SDG 3 good health and well-being, and by funding education and healthcare programs in mining regions?
I think I must have stole your notes because I think they are all, which is true because the SDG is interwoven. And yeah, I think in terms of health, it's good to give back. It's good to give back. For example, where I work was just announced today, like the money that the staff members donated as part of social club was given out to the charity over the last weekend and was amounting to like $3 million. I mean, those are the things that can be done. If it's contribution together and develop a small hospital where you work, I mean, there are people around where these mining companies operate, and just not mining alone, even oil and gas in Africa, because that's also a big deal in Africa. So if it's to pick a struggle, I always believe in do something, pick a struggle. If you want to focus on girl education as well as ice restoration, if that's what you want to do, just focus on it, train people, bring experts. I mean, giving sight to people is not a small deal. So, and it has to be sincere and not just doing it because a lot of charity in Africa is for roadshow, it's for fame, it's for social media. No, I mean, you do it and you do it genuinely. If you're focusing on education or agriculture, focus on it. If you're focusing on, so that's what I would say. Let the things I've mentioned earlier, bring them together, sit together at the round table, pick a struggle and attack it as an industry.
Thank you. Next question will be, what can African nations learn from successful international energy access programs and initiatives, and how can this knowledge be applied effectively on the continent?
You know, the major problem of Africa is energy access. If we solve the energy access problem in Africa, there's still like 600 million people without that, 400 million people without access to electricity. So the lesson is there. It's just the will to do it. Open up the market. One of the major challenges in some of the African countries is not even the generation, it's the transmission line. So, and that's why I mentioned earlier, like, remember where these mining companies are operating, there's no power. So if there are like 4 or 5 mining companies in the same area, for example, if the government decides to privatize or develop a transmission line around that, automatically there will be power generation. The excess power can be exported to the grid. And this is a big deal because these guys have the capacity to run their own firms, they have to run their own companies without the government, right? So what if we now provide infrastructure that links them to the grid? Imagine having extra 1 gigawatt of power added to your grid. So that's something that can be learned from internationally. It's not really been done, but I've encouraged it. But in terms of privatizing the transmission line, those have been done in Brazil, in UK. So those are the lessons that Africans can learn, and they should use their experts. Because sometimes nobody knows your problem like your people. So always use your experts before you consult foreign experts, and then bring them together and you can achieve the impossible.
Thank you. Next question is, what innovative financing mechanism and business models can be employed to support sustainable energy access projects in Africa?
Yeah, providing guarantees is a big deal because when it comes to SPV, special purpose vehicles that are used for energy access and stuff like that, even farming equipment or things like that, it's often difficult because some of these, for example, some of the local people or the utility itself are not bankable, right? So sometimes you need guarantees in order to access international funding, right? So coming together and the government providing some guarantee or some hedge funds, that's number one. Number two is making it easy for investors to be able to repatriate their money. Because sometimes we don't look at, people want to invest, you want to get you have a nice business model, you want to get your investment capital overseas, but then these guys look at what happens if I make my profit, can I take back my money? Then they are not able to take out their money, which is the challenge we are facing. So make repatriation of profits possible, provide enough guarantees, and I think the business model will work using mostly SPVs, and let that project, whatever project you are doing, let that be your collateral, and I think it will work.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, how does gender play a role in energy access, and what strategies can be implemented to ensure equitable energy access for women and girls?
I think women need more power in Africa than men. Men are always just there, go to the farm, come back, and they just use fan to fan themselves sitting outside like this, while women are busy cooking. So energy access goes down to even solar cooking. It's supposed to be a big deal in Africa. That takes a lot of pressure away from women. And I don't think there's discrimination in terms of energy access when it comes to gender in Africa. But what I would say is energy access generally. But when it comes to access, I think we can just copy and paste what I said in terms of gender equality and gender inclusion for the mining industry to the energy industry. Both of them plays. But I would just say, like, I think because women use power more? What do men use power for than to charge their phone, play games, or watch TV? Right? So I think if we all start developing, which is already working, I know there are some companies that do that in Zambia, in Kenya, mobile solar stations, small rechargeable batteries. Once we just start thinking around the line of what women do and the innovations they need, which also ties back to the goal 9 in the SDG. So start thinking in that line, and then this discussion can be taken further.
Great. The next question is, what are the key barriers to private sector involvement in expanding energy access, and how can these barriers be overcome?
Yeah, I think that's like I said, will be the two questions ago, if I could use that English. The fear in terms of the policies are changing. In Africa, when the government change, the policy changes. So separating policy from government is a big deal, such that when I'm investing and my investment, the payback is over 10 years, and the government changes in 5 years, I'm still able to get my money back. But if there's no guarantee on that, nobody will invest. That's number one fear for the international companies. Number two is, if I invest my money and your currency keeps falling, I can't be able to withdraw my money back. And that's why I'm saying be ready to be able to give them their money back in dollarized rates. At this stage, I think we have to do it like that. And the last one is what I'll say, provide guarantees. If the government really needs people to work, which I think also not government in terms of people themselves need to come together as cooperatives, because if you are assessing a fund or assessing like the discussion I said I'll have with Ruby, for example, I have a group of colleagues that will have been interested in investing in farming in Africa. So I think it would make more sense if we are speaking to a group of farmers rather than one person. So the way we can achieve that is people should come together and form, just like what she said they've been doing, form a unit. Then it's easy for you to talk to external investors, because we are talking to one body with a representative rather than speaking to 20 people. I think that's the fastest way in order to allow investors. And those are the challenges and the barriers, which I also give how it can be overcome.
Thank you. Next question is, how can energy access initiatives in Africa be designed to address the specific needs and challenges faced by urban and peri-urban population?
Interesting question. In energy access, generally, there's no one solution fits all. So what works in North Nigeria will not work in Southern Nigeria. What works in Copper Belt will not work in Lusaka. What works in Joburg will not work in Cape Town. So it's an important question to ask, like, what do people need? You don't just provide solution to people without doing enough feasibility studies in terms of what they do. I'll give you an instance. I've been involved in projects in some African countries where we know that the energy usage, they needed a particular amount, and then we provided that. Then immediately after we left, people started buying TV, started buying fridge, and it was a learning process. Now we know, like, people need 50 kilowatt hour, for example, provide for 70 kilowatt hour. It's a lesson that we learned. So in terms of urban and peri-urban area, there are different needs and different suburbs. So depending on, so start the discussion with them. And that's where what I mentioned is important is SDG. People first, environment second, then money last. So when people are saying, if it's people-centric, have a discussion with them. This is what we need. You have hydro, let's use it. You have solar, let's use it. This is what you have. So do things based on the resources that are available in that region. Don't say because Europe said we have to do PV, then everybody do PV. Don't say because India is doing CSP, then everybody do CSP. Look for what is available in that region and maximize it.
Great, thank you. My next question will be, how can investments in energy infrastructure be facilitated to bridge the energy access gap in Africa and promote economic development?
I think I might have answered that already. I think I answered that already in one of the questions. But in terms of development, like I mentioned, one thing that the world don't know really about Africa is Africa are very industrious. If you give Africa an idea, they turn it over and do a lot from it. Like, you'll be shocked, people sell recharge card in Africa, which is not done anywhere else. You buy recharge cards on streets in Africa, there was a lot of business value and value chain that was created from mobile telecommunication when it came to Africa. right? You buy recharge card, we even send people send money by SMS in Africa, which started from Kenya, right? So once the electricity is available, using all the techniques I've mentioned, it's automatic development, it's automatic improvement on GDP, it's automatic improvement on the livelihood of people.
Okay. So my next question will be, are there any successful models or case studies of off-grid and decentralized energy solutions that have improved access in rural and remote areas of Africa?
Yes, I think it's best in Africa, actually. In Nigeria, the Rural Electrification Authority has done a lot, and I think they are doing really well. There's a massive off-grid market because there's a lot of, the more you go off the city, the more expensive it is to create network, right? Someone will say if you use $100 to make a network, to connect one person in the city, you may end up using, if I use South Sudan, for example, where 1% asset to electricity. If you connect $100 in the city, the farthest place you will need to use 1,000 to connect them. So, which means you need to decentralize. Yes, there are cases. It's big in Zambia. There are containerized solutions where people just take to villages and it works. It's big in Kenya. It's big in Nigeria. I think the best cases when it comes to decentralized renewable energy solution is actually in Africa. I was also shocked working in Australia, realizing that people were not aware that it works in Africa. So yes, there's a lot of cases. Just Google, and if you don't have access to, if you cannot get them, you can always reach out to me. I can give you instances. And if you need people to partner with, they are very, very easily available.
Thank you. My last question for you is, what role can renewable energy sources such as solar and wind power play in expanding energy accessibility across the continent?
Oh, everything. Africa is blessed. The wind is there, the sun is there, just like the mineral resources is there. And the land is good. The land is also green. So yes, because it's always good to, when we were joining the telecommunication industry, for example, there were some countries that didn't have landlines, but they didn't have to go back to landline. They just joined the GSM mobile communication straight. So my advice to African countries, if you have the capacity to also build renewable energy, why not build it? If you have the capacity to build it, build it. And I also put a caveat there. Remember I said, whatever we do, you need mining. So because I'm in the mining sector, I'm an energy expert in the mining sector. While I'm very passionate about renewables, for Africa, I'm always telling them, use what you have. What you need is an energy plan. We call it energy mix. First, develop a plan. You want 70 hydro, 20 solar, 10 this, 10 that, and then make it realistic in your scenario. And sky is the beginning. That is actually not the limit. And yeah, that's my recommendation. But it will work if allowed in Africa.
Thank you, Dr. Teosi. That was really helpful, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, our next speaker will be joining shortly. So, sorry for the inconvenience. We just wait for her for 5 minutes. Welcome, Miss Sarah. Please on your camera and unmute yourself. Good morning, good afternoon, and good great young accomplished leaders.
Graduations on Harvard with non-happy topics as COVID.
Good morning, PIT, and your host for equality, women face and clear steps to. So we have a very
Okay. So I'm Ekta, and I have, as per my qualifications, I'm a law graduate, and I'm also masters in international criminal justice and human rights from Nottingham Law School, UK.
good morning, good afternoon, and evening. GCPIT has started this global leadership Economic Leader 100 plus all-in-one program for Jolene Dever. Welcome, Ms. Jolene. To the show.
Hi.
So, could you please provide us with a brief summary of your background and experience, highlighting your key accomplishments and expertise? This will help our audience to get to know you better before we delve into the interview questions.
Super happy to do so. So my name is Jolene. I'm originally from Belgium. Right now I'm located in Düsseldorf, Germany. I am a seasonal entrepreneur and also marketing expert with a wealth of experience in international projects and marketing strategy. And that really equipped me with the right skills to launch multiple successful businesses. Thinking of Marketing Scalers, that is a marketing agency in the US where we want to scale tech companies. Then we have Yellow. Yellow is a tech platform that connects brands with like-minded agencies. But we also want to shake up the marketing world because it really lacks transparency. And then as last, we have My Cattleya, that is then a real estate project in Florida. So overall, I'm also an author of the book Think Big, Scale Fast, and which really showcase my philosophy in successful scalership, entrepreneurship, where we combine scaling with entrepreneurship. So been now around for 15 years in the business. I think time is flying, and I lived in Europe for a while, also in Chicago in North America, and in South Africa. So that is me.
Great to hear that. As you said, you have 15 years of experience. So, in that experience, how have you balanced your work and life responsibilities?
I must say it's really all about having an open communication between you and your family. What are you doing? What are you not doing? And being true to yourself. I think we all developed a kind of a routine that not only works like then for me, but then as well for the whole family, and then really stick to it. It's blocking time off for yourself with the family to do your work. And it's about setting priorities, but also knowing your boundaries, taking into consideration that self-care. Like in the morning, I always do my yoga, then I go for a run, and also understanding your energy drivers, right? And one for me, for instance, is connectivity. So I love to spend time with friends, family, and like-minded individuals that really gives you positive energy.
Great. Yeah, as you said, prioritizing helps to lead a more simple life, it seems.
Yeah.
Great. So, as a female leader, what has been the significant barrier in your career?
I think stereotypes and a gender bias is always is still present, right? I think overall, women in leadership, you can have that stereotype that women are too emotional, that they are too soft, that they are not assertive enough, and that sometimes can hinder their ability to lead with confidence. And recently, I also encountered it while seeking funding for the moment. And regardless if you stand there full of confidence, full of power, and you know what you're talking about, at the end of the day, an investor wants to invest in a very like-minded person. And I will always be a woman, right? And knowing that 99% of that audience is then male investors, I will never be a man, right? So, or at least I don't want to be. So I think that is always something that is indeed gender bias, because we sometimes are perceived as less capable or less committed than the male counterparts. But yeah, that would be the answer.
Unmute yourself.
So now I'd like to call our next speaker, George Kobina Ida, Tourism Engineers Ltd, Director Strategy and Innovation. He is a distinguished consultant specializing in tourism and entrepreneurship, armed with a master degree in tourism management from the prestigious University of Cape Coast. He has held esteemed position of Chief Operation Officer at Rome, Ghana, where his strategic vision and commitment to excellence propelled the company to new heights. Under his guidance, Ghana received prestigious accolades such as Best Tour Operators of the Year in the Central Region. He was also nominated for Most Popular TV Show Host and Best TV Show Talk Show, showcasing his significant influence in the media industry. Welcome, Mr. Kobina, and over to you.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, please. Could you please on your camera?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Greetings to everyone. So I'll just go straight in. Yeah.
Kobina, could you please use the poster that I have shared with you? Is it possible to do that?
Let me look at that real quick.
Yes, please.
Okay, that would take me a little minute. I'm not pretty savvy like that, so I'm just. Or you want to talk me through the process of?
Okay,
of
you
making
have yes. First of all, you have the poster downloaded in your laptop.
Yes.
Is there?
I have that done.
Okay, great. Then you can see the video options, top video option in your Zoom only. Besides the mic, for there you can see a small icon upwards. Click there.
Yes, I've seen that.
Choose virtual background.
Okay, got it.
Then on the left side, you will get a plus sign. From there, you can upload it.
Okay, thank you so very much.
No problem.
Is that okay now?
Yes, yes. Fine. Please carry.
So my topic basically is about youth engagement and the sustainable goal, particularly sustainable goal number one. So I'm looking at how to drive the end of poverty basically by engaging the youth. So I'll start my presentation by looking at a quote from the 44th president of the United States of America, in the person of Barack Obama, when he said, if poverty was or is a disease that infects the entire community in the form of unemployment and violence, failing schools and broken homes, then we cannot just treat the symptoms in isolation. We have to deal with an entire community. And so to delve into the matters for today, which is Sustainable Development Goal 1, the eradication of poverty, we must ask ourselves a fundamental question, and the question is, how? The standard answer that is received, and that I've gotten from so many places, especially even if you look at those at the forefront of the fight against poverty, what you realize is that it is quoted as the ability to afford the basic necessities of life, such as food, water, healthcare, and shelter. However, as an African growing up, when you look at the African cultural construct within the rich culture of Africa, and particularly the structure of our language, what you would realize basically is that the fact that the word affordability is not key and is never used for anything that has to do with the basic necessities of life. The word accessibility is used, and therefore put the onus on the leaders of a community in providing such necessities. And beyond that, going one step further in making sure that the people within that community can access these basic necessities. And that, for me, is the key thing that we must start with. Second thing that comes up immediately is the fact that once you look at that basic change or construct of language, then you begin to see why we are where we are today. Why? Because basic necessities have been commercialized, wherein lies our greatest challenge in overcoming poverty. Another beautiful quote that was said is that poverty is relatively cheap to be addressed, but increasingly expensive when you ignore. And what that talks about is the fundamental focus on those basic necessities, again, which is food, shelter, good education. More importantly, though, is something that is hardly or rarely talked about, which is the youth, the emerging adult, who for me are the center core of global poverty. Let's look at some data just to let's look at some data. Basic. The United Nations projects that if current trends continue as it is, a total of 575 million people will be living in extreme poverty by the end of 2030. Despite the expansion on all the social protection works that have gone into during the period of COVID-19, over 4 billion people remain still entirely unprotected, and with significant proportion of them being the youth. Global youth unemployment, according to the International Labor Organization, says that young people are 3 times more likely to be unemployed, unlike adults. And the youth unemployment rate currently is at 15.57%. Africa has the largest number of people under 35 years old, which represent a little over 1 billion people, making them the largest that the generation has to contend with and to raise. The travel and tourism factor also comes in, where it represents almost 1 billion, accounts for 10.4% of global GDP, offering immense potential for economic growth and community development. All of this is undeniably showing us that the approach that we have taken to the eradication of poverty, especially when we alienate the emerging adult, which is the youth of our world, is not the proper one. And I should say here that global leadership or government has labeled the young generation of this time as crisis. And when governments are beginning to guesswork what should happen around the greatest resource that we have, which is over 1 billion people, then you know that that in itself is problematic. I will quote Dr. Miles Monroe when he said, when governments are guessing, then the world is in jeopardy. And that is the mirror of what we see today in the world. Young people globally are changing and challenging the status quo. They are taking mantles of leadership and producing practical and relevant solutions within their local community and, more importantly, within the nations that they are. Some inspiring leaders are, for example, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who took up the journey of liberating Ghana at the age of 21. You have Dr. Sankara, who took up that mantle of leading Burkina Faso when he was 33. You have Nelson Mandela, for example, who challenged apartheid in South Africa when he was 21. And it goes on and goes on. And let's not forget young inventors, people like Williams Kawamba, Adebola Duro-Ani, and countless others who have championed the innovation and have turned around the fortunes of their community and therefore eradicated poverty to the lowest bare minimum in their communities. I stand here today, therefore, with a passionate call, saying that we have an unprecedented opportunity to address most of this pressing need, particularly the one facing us more than any other, which is poverty. The endeavor that we must drive to in recognizing the potential of youth and their pivotal role in driving this solution is critical. My call, therefore, is simple and straightforward. Let us empower the youth. It's pretty simple as that. We need to empower the youth because in the youth is the answer in ending poverty. And let us do so, in my view, through entrepreneurship. And particularly, I'm talking about tourism entrepreneurship. Why, you would say? 1.7 billion people of the world represents an invaluable resource that we cannot overlook. They possess the energy, the creativity, the determination to effect meaningful change, and we must seize that opportunity, in my view. Another thing that is very important that I must emphasize here is that the youth play that role, and in doing so, global youth unemployment is a pressing issue. With young people 3 times more likely to be unemployed than adults, youth-led entrepreneurship powers transformation, stimulates potential growth in different and varied economies. The tourism sector in particular comes with significant impact in economic and offers immense potential for growth and development. Youth-driven initiatives are a positive impact, creating jobs and promoting economic well-being and social balance. Empowering our youth through entrepreneurship not only creates economic opportunity, but also has the potential to empower others in their community. Let me drive to a conclusive, to my conclusion here in my presentation. I would emphasize that youth entrepreneurship is essential, especially within the tourism entrepreneurship, which presents us with promising direction. International Labor Organization states that 1 out of every 10 jobs worldwide comes out of tourism, or it is within the tourism sector. 1 of every 4 new jobs created is in that sector. Its impact is community-based. It is pretty pivotal and instrumental for fighting poverty at the grassroots. I want to also highlight that I believe, and it's the principal hope, that the future lies in adopting new concept, one that places rich capacity on emerging adults and youth at the forefront of the solution matrix. Overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity. It is an act of justice, a protection of the fundamental rights that guarantees dignity and decent living. Nelson Mandela's words resonate with us in this wise when he said, overcoming poverty is not just a gesture, it is an act of justice, a protection of fundamental human rights and the right to dignity and decent life. So I want to remind everyone, and particularly leaders across the globe, that overcoming poverty means allowing the youth to be the architects of their own future. Doing so is not, again, a gesture, but an act of justice. Let us therefore remind ourselves that youth are empowered to become, when youth are empowered to become the architects of their destinies, they equip, they drive economic growth and social progress. They lead us to a world where poverty becomes a thing of the past. Together, we can turn this call into action. Let us invest in the youth, nurture the entrepreneurial spirit, and watch them thrive. This, my friends, is not just a call, but an imperative for us for a more prosperous and equitable future for all. This ends my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Kubina. Now, I
Thank
would
you very
like to
much.
ask you a few questions.
Please go ahead.
How can youth-led initiatives and entrepreneurship contribute to achieve SDG 1 no poverty in both urban and rural communities?
How can I? I think my answer will be that I'm already on that journey. To start with, I run a tourism company called Tourism Engineers. And part of Tourism Engineers, we have a program where we empower community-based entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs that come up with indigenous and community-led initiatives in the process of empowering their community. And it is based on community initiatives. So it starts with empowerment, training, capacity development, and also the drive in ensuring that funding is given to these young entrepreneurs and innovators within such communities.
Thank you. My next question is, what are the key challenges and opportunities in empowering young people in developing countries to actively participate in poverty reduction efforts as outlined in SDG 2 Zero Hunger?
I think that if we first of all look at the population of the world and the demographic of it, 1 million, about 1 million people constitute the youth in Africa. Asia is about 700, in Africa, we have about 1 billion, we have about 1 billion young people. In Asia, we have about 750 million people. So within Africa, it already tells you that the power behind any engineered idea to eradicate or eliminate poverty, particularly from the perspective of hunger, is the young people. I think that government, first of all, must be deliberate in putting out policies that limit the drive of young people wanting to be doctors. I think we have too much of them. It's just too much. I think we have too much of doctors. We have too much of lawyers. We have, in Ghana, for example, and I think across West Africa, particularly Ghana and Nigeria, young people are now taking up the mantle to want to be politicians. That does not ensure food on our table. It ensures some rough avenue to making money. But the only way we can eliminate hunger is by producing food. We must be the drivers of producing our food and begin to use that from a tourism base, begin to market our indigenous food. And when my grandma can therefore create an old or long forgotten food from the Fanti tradition or the Akan tradition or whichever tradition, and we can package that to, when tourists come in and they begin to see African cuisines on the table rather than continental cuisines, then we're beginning to answer that question, because then food and eliminating hunger becomes the answer to ability to earn, but also more importantly, to be able to feed ourselves. And the biggest problem across Africa is that we don't produce our own food in the first place.
Okay. My next question for you is, in what ways can youth-led organizations and projects promote financial inclusion, decent employment, and economic growth to align with SDG 8, decent work and economic growth?
Wow, that's quite interesting. I think there are multiple angles to this. The key one is collaboration and partnership. That for me is the biggest thing, collaborations and partnership. My skill is, for example, impacting knowledge and skills development. I'm not a key person when it comes to fundraising and the likes. And so what I do currently with my project, for example, is there's another company that I partner whose expertise is in that area. And so therefore, like I said, for me, collaboration and partnerships is key, is reaching out to organizations that have these funds. It is also reaching out to other organizations that work within the community that I exist, that I'm in, for us to create this ecosystem where when I develop capacity, they can also give the direction towards how funds will be raised. And then collectively, our job is to ensure that whatever funds is raised is used primarily for the project and for the objective for which they were given. And I think that this is the key thing. But underpinning that again is the word partnership and collaboration. And when I say partnership and collaboration, it's not limited to the ecosystem that we have created. It is also dealing with international organizations that have these resources, but more importantly, that are interested in the goals of impacting and empowering and eradicating the SDG goals, particularly 1 and 2.
Thank you, Mr. Kovina. Thank you for joining today and sharing such useful information with us. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much. And I hope my contribution, no matter how small it is, takes us a step further in our Vision 2030. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. So I'd like to call our next speaker, Ms. Sara Ugmana, Founder, Executive Director, Other Initiatives. She has over 7+ years of experience in the non-profit sector. Ms. Sara works today towards creating sustainable solutions for older persons aged 60 and above by providing access to healthcare services and intergenerational education and the protection of their human rights. She was a panelist on the RICA-Coms Week 2023 as she shared her story and experience in overcoming obstacles and creating impact within her industry as an African thought leader. Welcome, Ms. Sara, and over to you.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much. Kindly confirm you can see and hear me. Yes. Yes. All right. Thank you so much. So let me go over to sharing my screen. Hold on. Thank you.
Ms. Sara, please on your camera.
Okay. Yes. Sorry about that. Okay, so let me go over the trend. I was just trying to hear. Okay. Thank you once again. I'm so happy to be back here. Yes. Confirm you can see. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's loading.
Okay.
It's saying Miss Sarah has started screen sharing, but it's not showing anything yet. Yes, it's on. Please, can you make it slideshow?
Yes.
PPT into slideshow. Yes.
Yes, definitely. Let me do that. Thank you. Okay, so while that is, let me stop sharing and do that again because okay. So while I'm trying to get to my screen, technology has been a lot for me today, but yeah, we move. Yeah, so today I'm going to be speaking on building sustainable communities for the aging population. Can you, I've put it on presentation mode. Can you see it?
Yes, but slideshow mode.
Yeah. Have you?
Please make
okay, so from here I can okay, I don't know. Okay, I'm so sorry. Let me stop sharing again and see what the problem is. Okay, so I work within the elderly care sector.
Miss Sarah, you can
Yeah?
download it and share us.
Yes,
in the Zoom only. We will present it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. So let me just do that.
Download it and share in the Zoom itself.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Sorry, just give me a few minutes. My
And please
my network has.
And please download it as PDF.
Yes. Okay, so while this is going on, while I'm trying to sort out my screen and my presentation, today I'm going to be talking about building sustainable communities for the aging population. And I was so excited when the last speaker, Mr. George, talked about his grandmom, and that just got me excited to see that there's still value in what we do as a community and as a continent, and wanting to share that with other people. Okay, sorry, give me a few minutes. Let me try this. Okay, I think this is working now. Sorry. Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay, so it's downloading now, finally, successfully. And yeah, over the past 7 years, I've worked with very rural communities that have little or no access to healthcare and advocacy services. And I've come to realize that one of the ways we could build a sustainable community is to develop an inclusion plan, because according to the United Nations, by the year 2030, we would have more than half of our population as older persons. So it just helps put me in check to see, okay, so this is where you are. How many years will it take you to reach 60? Do you see? Because according to the United Nations, the definition of an older person is from age 60 and above. And it just puts a lot in perspective. It's still downloading. It's still downloading. Yes. And while I was thinking about sustainable development, especially within the elderly care sector, I came across a quote that really stood out for me. And it says that a fairer, healthier, and more sustainable world is only possible if we promote age-friendly cities or age-friendly communities. And I find this to be so true because there's a stigma that goes with old age. When a person is older or when the person reaches a certain age, then the person is considered not viable enough to work or seen as a burden or, just discarded. And then you have the rise of ageism that comes with it. But I see a sustainable community as the foundations we build now for us to be able to reap from tomorrow. So what groundwork are we laying now within the elderly care space that ensures that once we transition into that space, right, it's now easier for us to access all that we need to access. Okay, let me try this again.
You share the PPT in Zoom only? Mr. Santosh will.
Yeah, to share with you, I would have to, can you see my screen?
No, it's loading only.
How about now?
Yeah, yes, but we need
so
the slideshow. Yes.
Let me put it on slideshow. Yes.
Fine, proceed, please.
You can see it. Is this good?
Yes, it's good. Please proceed.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. So we good, right?
Yes. Good.
Okay. So yeah, let's just move ahead with. So this is the quote I was talking about. A fairer and healthier and more sustainable world is only possible if we promote age-friendly cities. And I find this, like I said, I find this to be so true because in a couple of years, most of us will be transitioning into what the UN defines as an older person, which is age 60 and above. And we have realized that from my work and from my experience, I've come to realize that older persons are not included in a lot of things. I was at an event and a meeting this morning, and we were talking about mental health issues and a framework or a roadmap to ensure that mental health is taken down to the grassroots levels, because we have so many older persons that are abused based on the fact that there's a lack of knowledge of what mental health means to an older person. So when we have age-friendly communities that are sustainable, we're able to now gap this knowledge, and fill in this information to let people know, okay, this is what it means when an older person, has a mental health illness or a mental health issue. Another quote for me says that a fair, healthier, and more sustainable world is an interconnected and repurposed world informed by redefined commitment in the health sector, inclusiveness, commitment to engagement, and supports older persons in their health needs as an enabler to dignified and healthy lifestyle. There's a popular saying we have in Africa, and it says that health is wealth. No matter how much you plan or no matter how much you want to achieve, if you don't have good health, there's so far that you could go, right? And for older persons, this is so important because as you get older, you begin to experience different changes in your body and in the way you react, the way you act, in your mental health, in your cognitive health. And sometimes if it's not properly channeled or dealt with, you see that an older person at 60 or 65 begins to lose like a sense of purpose or a sense of meaning. So the universal health, encompasses not just young people but old people as well, and this helps them live like a life of meaning or a life of purpose for them to move on with their affairs. And then this by Albert Einstein really got to me. He says we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. And I loved this so much because sustainability is all about innovation, right? When you create a problem, or when there's a problem and you create a solution for the problem, the next question is, how do we ensure that this solution outlives this duration, or this solution is being replicated in other areas to ensure that we get the same impact or we get the same maximum result. So when I saw this quote, it just reminded me of sustainability. You know, you have to keep tweaking. You have to keep tweaking to go along to ensure that whatever solutions you're providing to a problem, it has to evolve, you know, it has to evolve, still maintaining the reason why you're having that solution. So it has to keep evolving. So yeah. And then what is an age-friendly city or an age-friendly community? It is a city that promotes older people's social, urban, digital, and productive integration, and in which their rights are guaranteed. This is so important because without putting into cognizance the human rights, the rights of older persons, you cannot achieve an age-friendly, inclusive environment. And an age-friendly, inclusive environment encompasses even the SDG goals, you know, from the goal 1 to goal 2 to 3, and it cuts across. So in every of the SDG, you can see that there is a place where the aging community can benefit from. And, you know, like I was saying earlier, according to the United Nations, 1 in 6 people worldwide will be over 60 years and above. That's by 2030. And it is estimated that by 2050, people that are aged 65 and above will double the number of children that are 12 years and under. So you see, and I call this, like, we're experiencing what we call mortality longevity. So people are getting to live longer lives, and their lifespan is being extended, you see. So that's why we can see the rapid change in our society or in the world globally. And if we're not intentional about how we can include a sustainable world or a sustainable community for older persons, then, you know, what do we have when we move into that stage of our lives if we can build the foundations now? And then I said earlier, sustainability, for me, sustainability is about structures and systems. That is how I see it, because you have to replicate. I work within the nonprofit space, and if I'm carrying out a project, or when the project is being carried out, what guarantees the success of that project is the structures and systems that I put in place. Do you see? And then when we go back and get our, you know, go to take our M&E and find out, okay, so what worked, what didn't work, oh, this was a success. How do we replicate it to another community or another group of people to ensure that we have the same results or something similar to that? Do you see? So if we had not put down structures or system in place, we will not be able to repeat or replicate that success. Do you see? We will not be able to say, okay, this is what happened and this is what worked, so why don't we take it here and see how it works? That is sustainability, the ability to put systems and structures in place over a long period of time. And for us as our initiative, when we provide solutions for older persons, we're not taking up solutions that will last 10 years or maybe 20 years. We're looking at solutions that would outlive time, you know, for generations to come, solutions that would, you know, outlive my generation and other generations to come. So this is why sustainability is so important. And this is why when we build sustainability and when we are building our solutions, or, you know, we have to pay attention to our structures and our systems. And I talked about innovation. You have to be creative in how you now prefer your solutions, you know, because a group of older persons in maybe Kenya is different from, there will definitely be slight difference of a group of older persons in Nigeria, and there are so many variables that could make this different. So even as you work to replicate the success from one community or from one country to the other, it's important that you innovate and you're creative in your process to ensure that when you step back, this solution can function effectively without you, because you have put in the right structures in place. And then how do we promote sustainability? I was so happy when Mr. George talked about partnerships and collaborations. That's the whole idea of the SDG goals are about partnerships and collaborations, right? So you can't build a sustainable community without the partnership of the private sector, or without even the stakeholders or the beneficiary. One thing I've learned in my line of work is that you don't assume a solution sitting at home and then you feel like this is the solution these people need because they are older persons and there are common issues that they face. No, you have to involve them in creating the solution you want to prefer in their communities. Do you see? And then with the private sector, this is where we talk about policies and laws put in place to ensure that these policies, these laws are broken down to the grassroots level. So in every institution, in every organization, there's an inclusion of older persons, older persons with disabilities, older persons with cognitive issues. You have to include them to ensure that you have a robust system that operates within your sector. And then another way to promote it is to combat ageism. And I wrote down the definition that stood out for me for what ageism is, and I'm going to read it out. It says, ageism is how we think, that when it comes to stereotypes, how we feel, our prejudice, and how we act towards ourselves and those around us. Now, mind you, ageism is not just around older persons. Ageism cuts across both the old and the young. But for this presentation, we're going to be focusing on just the older generation. Do you see? Older persons suffer from discrimination based on their age. Once you're 60, you're retired, nobody wants to hire you. So you see older persons having challenges with their income, their finances. Someone who has served for a lot of years, by the time he's retired, they find him or tag him or her as an invalid, and they feel like because you're old, you can't do this for me, or you can't do that for me. And then we have the younger generations finding it difficult to communicate with older persons because of the stereotypes that have already been put in place. So one of the ways that we can combat ageism is to promote a positive image of older persons. Old age is not a disease. I repeat, old age is not a disease. It's just part of the circle of life, and we'll all go through it because we pray to live long, right? So you have to go through that process. So it's not a disease. It doesn't make you immobile. It doesn't make you, it doesn't do that. Those are all stereotypes. And one way to combat it is to foster intergenerational collaborations, through educations, through volunteering. Older, younger people come in to volunteer so that they can understand the minds of older persons. They take trainings, they take this knowledge sharing, capacity building on the life of an older person. And then we have the human rights. I think this week, the president of Nigeria rectified the African Charter on rights, on the human and rights, people's rights, and this also covers the rights of older persons. And this was such good news, because now we can now go down to the nitty-gritties to break it down into our transportation systems, into our educational systems, into our institutional systems. So people are aware that you have to respect the rights of older persons. You have to see an older person as a human being first before his or her age. Do you see? You do not define an older person based on her age or his age. You respect and see them first as human beings. That is the idea of, human rights. You have to respect and relate with a person first as a human being. Do you see? And then we have healthy aging, and this is so this is so amazing because what does this mean? Integrated care, person-centered care. So we are a sustainable community would require that there is free access or this easy access for an older person to meet his or her health needs or health challenges. We have healthcare centers or healthcare clinics or even hospitals that are not age-friendly inclusive. Do you see? So older persons suffer because of lack of knowledge on the part of the healthcare system. So if we have that robust community that says, okay, this is you in every healthcare institution, you have a geriatric ward or a geriatric department that caters to the needs of an older person. And then you do not generalize, right? That is what the person-centered care is about. You do not say, okay, you just finished dealing with diagnosing an 80-year-old person, and then a 70-year-old person comes in, and then you assume that it's the same issues that, it doesn't work like that. So healthy, one of the ways we can build a sustainable community to promote healthy aging, we should put into cognizance that we have older persons with disabilities. So we should have infrastructures that would ease the burden of older persons, especially those with disabilities, to ensure that they can move around, they can do what they need to do, they can access the care, the health care services they need and for the grassroots levels at very affordable prices or at very discounted rates, so that they can continue to live a purpose-driven life. And then we have the time bank, and this talks about where young people could come volunteer their time to help older persons, especially in this is more in the urban setting. You could volunteer your time to help with grocery shopping, body time, just help foster that social connection to bridge the gap that has already been created by abuse and discrimination. And yes, what are the benefits? Like I've said, one of the benefits for a sustainable community is social participation. So older persons get to be with other older persons, get to be with the younger community. We had an event in October to celebrate the International Day of Older Persons, and we brought older people together to have board games. So we had board games, we had bingo and all, and they were so excited. And when we were speaking to them, they were like, one of the major issues for them is loneliness, depression, and isolation. And, this is so true because most of them are retired, right? So most of them are left on their own while activities or the world moves on. So one thing that an inclusive, sustainable community will do for us is to foster that social participation. We create clubhouses, daycare centers, recreational facilities that will ensure that they are together. And then lifelong learning. There's wisdom at the feet of an older person. So we could come up with programs where younger people gain from the wisdom of an older person. I recently had a call with someone, and she was like, oh, my mom is 78 and she holds a PhD in English and all, and she'll be happy to speak with younger people who are writing their thesis in schools and their projects and all. This is lifelong learning, right? And then accessible healthcare. We've talked about that in the healthy aging. And then it builds community. It builds community. We're together as one. And then finally, aging in place. Most older people right now would like to age in the comfort of their home or their community than going to care facilities. But when the community or the home is not conducive, then there's a problem. So that's why for a sustainable community, we have things like occupational therapy, where we can come and tweak your houses to fit the needs of your older persons. We, create just create an environment that makes an older person feel very fulfilled and loved. Do you see? And Yes, so these are just a few. There's so much more. And then to wrap up, this also stood out for me by Howard. He said, we don't have to engage in grand heroic actions to participate in change. Small acts, when multiplied by millions of people, can transform the world. And this is so true. This is so powerful. Let's just think about it. That 1 hour you give, or that 5 minutes, and this is so relational to the time bank I talked about, where people put in their time and say, I will be able to do this for this number of time, I'll be able to be a volunteer to help this older person do this, or to be this older person's body mate for this period of time. Just those little acts, this is how we build and encompass, a sustainable community for an older persons, where they are heard and they are seen and they are respected. Like I said, you treat an older person first as a human being before you consider how old they are. This is really what a sustainable community for an older person should encompass and should look like. And I believe that, like Mr. George said, this cannot be achieved without partnerships. We have to partner with both the governments, the private sectors, the communities, the beneficiaries, other organizations like myself that are working within this space, within this field, to ensure that the seeds we are sowing today, we will reap it tomorrow, and our children will get to reap it tomorrow. Because when we have an inclusive community for older persons, we're able to transition smoothly. We're able to focus on, what our purpose is, or why we're here, and we're able to give out our best. So I believe that, this really stood out for me. Multiplied by millions of people, it can transform the world. So don't think that your 5 minutes or 1 hour is a waste. No, just that little act of kindness goes a long way in the life of another person. And then for a bigger picture, it helps you create that world where an older person is seen, another person is heard, another person is respected. So thank you very much for listening. I'm happy to answer your questions if there are any, but thank you so much. This has really been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Sarah, for joining, and thank you so much for sharing such useful information with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ms. Deborah Edwards, Circular Economy Innovation Partnership, CEIP, Head of Strategic Communication and Partnership. She is a seasoned communication and event management professional who has cultivated a career dedicated to crafting compelling narratives and orchestrating impactful events across the fields of education, media, technology, and circular economy. She plays a pivotal role in promoting sustainable practices, advocating for resources, efficiency, and fostering innovation. Welcome, Ms. Edward, and over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. First, let me say that I really loved being able to listen to the first two speakers that I got the chance to hear. I feel like they've said awesome stuff. I want to say thank you again for the opportunity to do this. So my presentation is going to be around circular procurement as a panacea for tackling the challenge of sustainable production and consumption. And in the next, say, 15 minutes, I'll try my best to dive into the concept, its significance, how it works, a couple of challenges, as well as an example from my organization, what we've been able to do with regards to circular procurement. Okay, so circular procurement is more of a strategic approach to purchasing that takes into account the entire life cycle of the product. When we look at the SDG 12, it says that we're trying to ensure responsible consumption and production. And looking at it, there is no better way to do that than to look at how people consume, really. But then to consider how people consume, you have to think about what is being produced for them, and is there a plan in motion to ensure that the entire life cycle, how it is designed, how it is produced, how it is thrown out at the end of the day, is effectively taken care of. Now, the goal of circular procurement is to ensure that we are able to minimize waste, to conserve resources, and to promote sustainability. And I think why I picked this particular topic is because of the work we do in circular economy. So in Nigeria, we're trying our best to enable the transition from a linear economy, which involves, make, take, and waste, to a more circular one, which involves you take, you make, you reuse, you recycle, and do a couple of things before you eventually, not necessarily toss it out, but before it ends up at the end of its life of that particular product. And why is this important? What is the current state of production and consumption that has necessitated this kind of intervention? Now, the global population is expected to reach 9.7 billion by the year 2050. And this invariably will put a lot of pressure on the resources and the consumption patterns of the populace entirely. And this doesn't spell well for our environment. In addition to that, it's recorded that we consume 1.7 times more than the earth can regenerate in 1 year. So imagine the earth regenerates things, resources in 1 year, and we are taking up to about 2 years worth of those resources. It means that we have shorter time to be able to do what we need to do to get it done. Finally, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation mentions that even before production or products get to the final consumer, we have situations where 90% of that production, of that produce rather, or the resources that were used to create that produce, is wasted. And this is really, really alarming, because when you think about it, when we don't have resources to fall back to, as well as we don't have a strategy in place to ensure that we are able to easily, tackle these issues, we're in some sort of trouble. Now, how does circular procurement work? So circular procurement, really, when you think about it, it's more about you assessing the product life cycle. And I've said that already. It means that you begin to analyze the product. How was it designed? How was it produced? How is it managed? For example, in the fashion industry, because we had a conversation around the fashion industry yesterday, we discovered that there are different layers to this. We have countries, say Nigeria, for example, that are not outright producers of products, but rather we are importers of products. And most times we even import the raw materials we use to make other products. This then spells the question as to how can we make it circular, or how can we procure circularly? And the answer we found to that is to begin to engage our suppliers to say, in your entire process, what have you been able to do to ensure that whatever it is that you are producing is sustainable, whatever it is that you're producing is eco-friendly? Which brings us to the next question, where the next item, where we need to begin to set a criteria for eco-friendly products. I don't know if there's actually a universal criteria for what eco-friendly products are, but then there needs to be one. And it could actually be based on region, because different region or different countries have different things that appeal to them. For us, at my organization, CIP, we came up with a tool called the Circular Products Catalog. And this was done out of the fact that we discovered that when we say circular products, we say circular businesses, a lot of people don't understand what it means. A lot of businesses might even be practicing circularity, but have no idea that what they are doing is actually benefiting the environment, so that they are encouraged to do more. So we came up with a tool, a digital tool that contains a couple of businesses across different sectors, because circularity actually cuts across the different sectors. It cuts across agriculture, cuts across energy, cuts across transportation, but just to mention a few. And we put together a couple of businesses that we've encountered that actually use waste. So the items we would typically refer to as waste material, they use it as inputs for their businesses. And we then launched a campaign to begin to encourage more people to choose those products over the other products that do not factor in what happens at the end of life. Now, this is not to say that, oh, other products should just be dismissed or other businesses should just suddenly close up. No, it means that we need to be more strategic about how we tackle the situation. So it means that businesses who want to thrive in the next couple of years need to say, what is my strategy? What can I add in place right now? So if I have a fashion brand, for example, I'm sorry that I'm using fashion a lot as the example for today, but let me just go with it. So if I say I have a fashion brand, I would be asking the question to say, okay, how do I not contribute back to the environment? It goes beyond just keeping my scrap. It means that when I design a new attire or when I make something available for my clients, I have to think of other options to it. I have to say that, oh, you could wear this dress for as long as you want to. But if you are able to do something, say in the next 5 years, you are tired of wearing this particular item, don't toss it off. You could actually bring it back, get some credits, and that will allow you buy another dress from me. Or if there are coalitions of fashion designers from all those fashion designers in our coalition. That's one way businesses that already exist can begin to incorporate circularity practices to their businesses. And this will begin to encourage individuals and organizations who patronize these businesses to go circular. Okay. There are definitely going to be some challenges to the implementation of this. But before we look at the challenges, let's highlight some of the benefits. I group the benefits into three. I group them into environmental benefits, economic benefits, and social benefits. For environmental benefits, this is not news anymore. By the time you're using waste as a resource or patronizing people who use waste as an input, or things we will ideally term waste as an input for their production processes, it will decrease the pressure on the resources that are available. So it will help conserve vital resources that are available right now. Not only that, it will help reduce the pressure on landfills. And it will also help to reduce CO2 emissions, because this time, whoever is purchasing is very conscious about all these items, ticking the boxes before they make their purchases, rather than purchasing based on just how cheap it is. And there's something very interesting that has popped up a couple of times, that eco-friendly products are not necessarily, how do we put it, affordable or cheap. And reviewing all this, we discovered that it was because the demand for those products is quite low. So if we're to increase the demand for those products, it will eventually be able to be mass produced, which will reduce the price. And in the long run, we're able to do not just environmental benefits, we're able to tap into the economic benefits of procurement. This will create innovative opportunities and job opportunities for a number of people. What are some of the challenges typically that circular procurement will pose? Resistance. Resistance is number one. If you've learned a particular way of doing things, invariably, you are going to want to stick to those things, which means the challenge for people who are businesses and individuals who are choosing to go circular is to say that, okay, rather than resist, let's create awareness. Let's exchange knowledge. Let's begin to enlighten stakeholders. Stakeholders can be business people, it can be students, it can be really everybody is affected by the issues with the environment. But when it comes to production and consumption, everybody also plays a role. It's either you're a producer or you're a consumer of some sort. So raising awareness, and ensuring that there is knowledge available would help, rather than challenge circular procurement. Of course, we can't talk about it without talking about regulatory hurdles. One thing really that we found across different countries is, okay, thank you so much. I'm on slide 8, I think. Okay, no, I'm on slide 7 rather. 7. Okay, thank you again. So one thing that we've been able to say we could do for, sorry. Okay. So one thing we've been able to say is that there is no business or there is nothing that actually works if the government is not able to put some regulatory framework or some policy framework that supports it. And this is something that we've seen as a challenge to this panacea called circular procurement. So we actually need regulatory bodies, and policies to be in place so that it makes it work. What are some of the things that will help the implementation? The development of circular procurement guides. Like I said, because there was no particular tool or directory, as you will, to help people choose circular products, we had to say, okay, let's give ourselves the task. Let's begin to put these people together and make this list essentially accessible to everyone so that they can make these choices, when they choose to. They can make it in times when they're choosing to give gifts out. They can make it in times where they probably just want to make purchasing decisions for their families. Then collaborating with suppliers and stakeholders. Remember where I mentioned that it's important for suppliers to collaborate, with the people that they are supplying. So when the people they're supplying, essentially the stakeholders, say your criteria, or rather the things that you are putting here, do they tick these boxes? It makes it really easy to implement circular procurement. And of course, monitor and evaluate progress. This is of utmost importance so that we do not start and stop halfway. So I'll just quickly run through I'll very quickly run through what the individual roles are and also what the organizational roles are. So for individuals, still recapping what I've shared, there's need to raise consumer awareness and behavioral change. So when the consumers or the individuals begin to make informed and sustainable decisions, it really helps. There's need for advocacy, where we begin to advocate for more sustainable products and services to be created, either signing petitions or engaging in discussions. It's essential, as it would drive the demand for more circular products or more eco-friendly products. There's a need to encourage reuse and recycle. We have an inside joke where we say that we've stopped collecting things that would essentially be, here we call them sway bags. So when you go to events and they give you this sway bag so you remember that you're there, we need to ask ourselves before we receive those items, are these items what I truly need? Or are there things that I can just leave because I have a couple or 1,001 at home? So reusing the things you have and recycling, I'm sure we're familiar with those words, also are the roles individuals have to play, even in circular procurement. Sharing and collaborative consumption. We can't emphasize this enough. There's no point in procuring what you don't need. Essentially, only procure the things that you need, DIYs and repairs, and then supporting circular brands. This goes without saying. There are a lot of, and this is quite interesting, there are a lot of circular brands that we've seen that now offer DIY and repair services as a part of the package of things that they offer, which helps the individual to choose to go that route than go the route of always making everything brand new or from virgin products. Now, for the consumer and for the organization, still just to summarize, we've talked about circular procurement implementation. We need guides, so we need criteria to be made available, and most times organizations have to tax themselves with these items. Organizations and bodies have to tax themselves to say, okay, what kind of policies can we put in place, so that whenever we're taking things or whenever we're buying things, they actually fit into the boxes of what we call circular products. We have to look at product design and innovation. When designing products, say if you are a manufacturing company, do you consider everything in its broad scope rather than just certain aspects, so that you don't cause a problem instead of solving the problem? Essentially, you look at your logistics, you look at the energy that you use, you look at the resources that you use. Were you efficient in your use of those items? And this, beyond helping organizations choose the products that actually are circular, it helps organizations decide on what to actually create. So they may invariably have to say, okay, we can't go with producing this just yet because we've not found a sustainable way to go about it. Then supply chain sustainability, end of life solution, that goes without saying. And I think that that's one of the most important things, so that we do not invariably continue to create waste. Collaborations and partnerships. The speakers who spoke before me talked a lot about collaboration and partnership, and I think that's a very essential for any goal at all to be achieved. We need to collaborate more. And finally, we have regulatory compliance. regulatory compliance is really, really important because we actually need frameworks to be in place in the first place so that these organizations can begin to comply with those things. And beyond that, we need people who will, monitor the process of these things. As I round up, I've already mentioned this at the beginning about our contribution as an organization. Another very simple thing before I go to the conclusion that we were able to do was we were able to cut down on a lot of things. So it's just a simple example. So when it came to the issue of energy, because a lot of us work from our homes within our team, and we end up invariably burning a lot of fuel, releasing harmful gases into the environment, we decided to say, okay, maybe we should choose an alternative power source, which typically might want to be solar. And then beyond just saying, oh, solar, we had to look at which production company actually considers, making solar panels from e-waste. That's actually possible. So that was a question we asked. And then we found an organization that does that, making solar panels from e-waste. At least 70% of the materials put into that solar panel is from the things we typically consider as e-waste. And then we were able to say, okay, each member of the team have one where you work so that you do not necessarily need to rely on the power supply, which is very, very shaky or trippy, or need to rely on generating generators which burn fuel and then release carbon into the environment. So simple choices like that are things that organizations can do, or things that individuals themselves can begin to do to ensure that we responsibly produce, or we responsibly consume, and producers responsibly produce. So in conclusion, circular procurement is indeed a powerful tool that can address the challenge of responsible production and consumption, and it would help us achieve a more sustainable and circular environment, or economy rather. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Edward. And now I would like to ask few questions. What are some key examples of successful circular procurement initiatives that have positively impacted the environment and local economies in alignment with SDG-A, decent work and economic growth?
Okay, so for this, I'm going to mention IKEA. For instance, so IKEA, though it's not a Nigerian company, essentially, it's something we could look at as an example. They decided to make a bold commitment to say that they would be more circular and climate positive by the year 2030. And this really involves rethinking their whole business model from the design to the end of life solutions. And when you think about that, IKEA essentially resembles a company that is circular because they've been able to cut down in the amount of resources that they use. You can ideally go pick up a table in small amounts, come to your house and set it up. So for them to say that they want to do much more, it's a wonderful example of, selecting or choosing to be circular. And that now allows the community that they serve, or the people that they serve, to choose more circular products. It doesn't mean that they get to lose clients, rather they gain more clients because they have chosen to go the opposite route. There's also how do I put this? Unilever, for instance. Unilever has chosen to say, okay, we want to make our packaging more recyclable, more reusable, and more compostable. And this has led them to say fund different research, R&Ds, research and development programs, looking for packagings that are more sustainable. Ironically, no, ideally, there are a couple of packaging materials that are essentially biodegradable. It's just a little more work that needs to be done to ensure that we can actually package these things and sell, or package the product without any issues, or without having the consumer who is going to receive those products being put off by what it looks like, because that is something that I think that has been one of the issues in that space. But there are indeed companies that are doing this. We have a couple of companies in Nigeria. It could be as simple as, and some of them are our partners, it could be as simple as saying the way they curate for their events is sustainable. We have an event coming up soon. The way we are curating even the experience and the items that we're using, we've considered all these things from a secular standpoint as to how we could do that. Thank you.
Okay. My next question for you is, how can circular procurement practices contribute to achieving Sustainable Development Goal SDG 12, responsible consumption and production, by reducing waste and promoting resource efficiency?
Okay. So and at the beginning, I mentioned something really. I said that when you look at the linear economy, which is something that is being practiced a lot, it's more about one way. So you just take maize and you toss out without any consideration. Now, circular economy says that you go the whole circle. And when you say circular economy, it's more about you take, you make, you reuse, you recycle, you refurbish. You do this a couple of times, and then there's also a plan for the end of life. Now, circular procurement, where it fits into this, is simply a way of saying that whatever it is that you are purchasing, because procurement simply means purchasing. However, you could make it a more technical term for organizations or ventures who, procure as a part of what they have to do with their organizations. Now, that procurement process, because you are choosing to make everything circular or go for things that are sustainably produced rather, or things that are more eco-friendly, it helps in achieving the SDG goals, because the SDG goal 12, because it urges you to be more responsible in your consumption. That's consumption simply means like the amounts that you consume, and it helps the producers themselves to be more sustainable in their production process, because you are ideally certain times using waste as an input. So using waste as an input means you do not necessarily need to rely on materials that are virgin product anymore, but rather you take the materials that are already in circulation and use them again, either as raw materials or you lengthen their lifespan. So those are ways, and over the long run, those contribute because it reduces the reliance on the resources that the earth has to regenerate.
Thank you. My next question is, what are some key examples of successful circular procurement initiatives that have positively impacted the environment and local economies in alignment with SDG 8, decent work and economic growth?
Okay, so when it comes to decent work and economic growth, I think I would mention one example that comes to mind. So in Nigeria, we have a company called Eco Circular Solutions. And what that company does is they take paper waste, and out of paper waste, they make ceiling tiles. Right now, they've been able to incorporate agricultural waste, and they make ceiling tiles. And where they started was they initially just collected the paper waste and sold it off. That was like one stream of income. They took the paper waste and sold it off. So it was essentially maybe a one-man job or sometimes a 2-3-man job. But because the founder decided to say, rather than just selling off this paper waste, let's look for how we could use it, transform it into ceiling tiles that people can use in their houses, they began to grow a broader team. So they have on their team engineers, they have on their team people that help them to build, and they build these things manually. They have on their team people that help them with the compiling, the pressing, or the molding of those paper and agricultural waste into the sheet boards that could be used for your houses. They still have people who collect agricultural waste and bring to them. They still have people who take the paper waste and bring to them. And then they have suppliers and they have installers who go to homes to help people install. Now, it went from being just a one-man business where I just collect these papers and sell it off to being something that has created a job opportunity for more than 5 people that I've mentioned. They've been able also to access funding and are looking to expand their operations. That in itself means that they are going to be employing more people to come on board, either as collectors or as part of the process, or even as part of people that help them install. That simple example over time increases, the amount of work that is created, which is the point that we're trying to make. It has made decent work. It has taken people off the street that wouldn't have jobs essentially, and it has made a place for them to be able to work. So circular procurement, when people buy from them, it just adds, like it completes the entire circle. Jobs have been created, people have more circular products, everything sort of goes well because of course, the environment is in good shape as a result of this. That's one of the examples of people who come up with innovation, because most times the products that you're producing circularly, they are innovative ideas by people. So they are new things that are just starting up and need the human resource to fill it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Edward. My next question will be, how can circular procurement help address social and economic inequalities, contributing to the achievement of SDG 10, reduce inequalities?
Okay. Sorry, you have to take that question again. I didn't really get.
Okay. How can circular procurement help address social and economic inequalities, contributing to the achievement of SDG 10, reduce inequalities?
Okay, so when it comes to inequality, I think of it from two ways. I think of the maybe gender bias most times, and then I also think of maybe the social status. When it, circular procurement, let me say circular economy, circular businesses, I'll use these terms interchangeably because I'm sort of referring to the same thing. Most of the jobs that are being created are not necessarily gender specific, because a man can do it, a woman can do it. And we found really that most of the people who do collections of maybe plastic, paper waste, they're women. Most of the people who sort, they're women. Most of the people who do this, they're women, they have families to feed. So doing these things help them when it comes to thinking about how to frame it. You know, purchasing from them essentially helps them to keep their jobs going on and to be able to cater for their families on the one end. Then when it comes to, in terms of maybe social status, one of the challenges we found is that a lot of times we think that when you have a bit more money, you tend to do more in terms of buy more, become more materialistic. But when it comes to circular procurement, it encourages you not to do that, because the lifestyle you've probably been living before, say where you reuse stuff, where you give out stuff, or where you share stuff rather than just owning everything yourself, is indeed circular, because you are not necessarily generating or requiring more resources to be added to you. So on those two fronts, I feel like it has been, or it has the potential to help in terms of like tackling the inequality situation on both ends. I hope like I was able to explain that properly.
Yes, Ms. Edward. My last question for you is, how can government and organization integrate circular economy principles into their procurement process to ensure the sourcing of sustainable and environmentally friendly products and services as advocated in SDG 13 climate action?
Okay, so how can they begin to do this? I think first of all, they have to review their existing policy. And remember, I said it's more of a long-term thing than a short-term thing, because a lot of things we've done or we are doing, it's ingrained in like behaviors and all that. So maybe they first of all review their existing policy. What does their circular procurement, or rather, some don't have a circular procurement policy, but where does their procurement policy stand? We have organizations that check out, say, 1, 2, 3 vendors before they make it. They pick who they would go to. And those vendors, usually the differentiator is how affordable is it? Is it cheap or is it very expensive? Rather than more than that. So it means that when they are making a new policy or updating their policy to reflect circular procurement, they now add an extra clause. How circular is this? You know, what amount of I don't want to keep saying waste as an input, but how efficient was the process that brought about this finished product that we're looking at here? And then, like I said a couple of times, what is the end of life for that particular item? Is there a plan in place by the producer? Because producers also have a responsibility for it, for whatever it is that is procured from them. Is there a plan in place? And when they've looked at all those things and ticked all those boxes, they can now begin to choose who to go with, based on maybe a percentage, because there's no 100% that I've seen, but maybe based on a percentage to say, okay, this is higher, and then it's still within the budget that we have set up. I think that could be the first step to organizations beginning to adopt circular procurement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh, for joining and sharing such informative information with us and your knowledge with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. So for today's last speaker is Mr. Deepak Kumar, Mind Reading Sustainable Design Partner and Sustainability Analysis Expert. He has 18 years of experience in the field of sustainability design, analysis, and solutions of all building topologies. He has successfully completed projects in India, Australia, Singapore, and Bangladesh in terms of sustainability solutions and green building certification. He is also into academics, and as he is a visiting faculty for few educational institutions guiding BR, MR, and PhD students and thesis guidance providing building sustainability aspects. Welcome, Mr. Kumar, and over to you. Mr. Kumar, please on your camera. Mr. Kumar, we need a better lighting. Could you please sit somewhere where we can get a good lighting?
Yeah, just a minute.
Yes, please. Mr. Kumar, could you please use the background that I have shared with you?
How do I do that?
It's in your laptop. Is it downloaded? First, you need to download that thing in your laptop.
Oh. Just a minute.
No problem.
Where is it? Is it in the invites?
Sorry, I have shared it in WhatsApp.
Oh. Hello, Ananya?
Yes, Mr. Kumar. Is downloaded?
Yeah, downloaded. Now how to?
Okay. In the Zoom only you can see the icon stop video. The second icon.
Which one?
Stop video. Just the second icon besides the mute.
Stop video. Okay.
Yes. Just beside that. No, you don't need to stop the video on the camera. I'll just. You can see a small icon, upwards icon. Click there.
Choose virtual background.
Yes. Choose virtual background. On the left side, you can see a plus sign. you need to click on the person and then you can upload it wherever you have downloaded it in your PC. Yes, done. Please proceed. Kindly present your PPT as well.
Yeah. Should I'll share the screen?
Yeah, please. Can you switch it to slide mode?
Yeah.
Yes, all good.
Okay. So good evening, everyone, and we thank GCPIT to give us this opportunity to share our ideas on sustainable cities and communities. So to give the background of my expertise, I have been in architecture and sustainable design from past 18 years. So whatever I would be presenting in terms of sustainable cities and communities would be more of a technical aspects, which goes into planning of a sustainable city and a community, and also being using smart technologies. So the topics which I would cover would be stormwater management, wastewater management, urban agriculture, and reduced carbon footprint, urban heat island effect and implication on cooling energy of buildings, then solid waste management, then sustainable mobility, sustainable renewable energy management and geothermal cooling, and night sky pollution and mitigation. So coming to the stormwater management part, as we know that there is a huge urban development, and almost 75% of the people are migrating to urban areas. It has been too much of a built-up which is happening, and in the urban areas, and also sealing of the pervious earth, to say. So we constantly we see natural calamities happening all around the world in terms of flooding, and people losing their life, property, and everything due to flooding. So stormwater management is a crucial element what you need to address when it comes to natural calamities management. So the survey in India says that around 600 million people are facing extreme water stress, and lakhs of people die due to inadequate access to safe water. That means to say that we have water everywhere, but due to the quality of water, and it is not safe to be, it's not consumable. That's why we are having this particular issue. And according to census 2011, out of 24 crores household, only 7 crores household are getting treated tap water. That is 75% households are getting contaminated water. And in terms of India currently ranks 120 amongst 122 countries in the water quality index. So we are extremely in a lower cadre when it comes to the water quality, and also having water which we can really use and consume. So having said that, the water is everywhere, and we have huge built up and sealing of the pervious earth in the urban areas. We have these flood issues. So there are few mitigation measures what we can integrate as a what we can integrate in the urban design and planning when it comes to increasing the perviousness of earth to the water, and planning it in such a way that the water actually has more catchment area to take time and percolate into the ground. So that's what this urban structure planning in the section what you see, where in the urban areas along the roads, you have more pervious areas and also more areas created for the water catchment upper, so it does not flood the road, but at the same time it has more time to percolate into the ground based on the soil condition and other things. And there will be a lot of evaporations happening, which also gives a cooler climate to the cooler microclimate in the urban area. So and again, it follows its cycle where it gets into the cycle of clouds and rains. So basically instead of having a reactive approach to stormwater management, where we think or just think of increasing the pipe diameter of the public stormwater drains and adding the drains and many other very reactive measures, there has to be measures which are to be considered as the first step towards stormwater management, where we allow the water to percolate into the ground, and that would negate most of the issues which arises out of stormwater overflow and flooding. Our urban areas are more resilient and safe to be used during rains. So these are few new approaches which are going around in the mostly European countries, where you have completely pervious landscape next to the road, and almost the discharge to the stormwater drain is minimized by 75%, and that really does not call for any additional piping or increasing the pipe dia of the stormwater drain. You can see these sketches on the right hand corner, where you have increased the catchment area by having a cavity water storage below the paving. So it takes its own time to seep into the ground, and the roads are not flooded. So that way, if you see, there are a lot of methods which you can do during the urban planning and design stage, which actually need not get into a reactive solution of just spending on the infrastructure, which again may become redundant after a few years. So these are few technologies which are in the industry, where you have porous concrete. So on top it will be just like a concrete with a concrete paving, but it will be porous, and it will allow water to percolate through it and finally infiltrate into the ground. So the construction industry is also working towards drawing a balance between what would be the design aspirations versus what would be right for the environment, where we allow the water to percolate, but at the same time, as a look and feel, we can still have a concrete feel if the designer wants. But we are trying to balance out the interests of the designer versus what is right climatologically. But at the same time, these concrete, what is used to produce porous concrete, is all recycled concrete from the demolition concrete waste. Hence, it is also having an approach of circular economy, where a debris, so concrete debris, which would have gone to the landfill and polluted the landfill with boron and other chemicals, it would have polluted the water table. That is reused as porous concrete, and its life is enhanced. So this is one situation where we would like to appreciate Dr. Vishwanath from Bangalore, who is an water expert, and Bangalore is a city of lakes and wells anciently, and there were a lot of lakes and a lot of wells which has drastically reduced, and this person is he's doing a very noble job of regenerating the wells, and also increasing the chances of groundwater percolation into these wells, and increasing the water table. So this is something which is happening in Bangalore, which we need to acknowledge at this point of time, when we have issues of stormwater management not being right, and and these wells not being functioning and the paths towards the lake, the runoff, stormwater runoff towards the lakes are blocked by construction, illegal construction, or whatever you want to say, not advisable construction sites. So this is, we need to appreciate this role played by him. So rainwater harvesting, we need to connect it to the financial model where the people are given incentives in terms of when if they're in terms of water cost, when if at all they have implemented rainwater harvesting, and if measurable by any method. So there are today in most of the projects we can measure the amount of rainwater recharged from the surface runoff and the amount of rainwater stored and reused. So we have a measurable method where we can put up water meters and actually understand how much water has been reduced from going to the stormwater drains and loading it with and choking it. So there we need to use those technologies of measurements and metering and give incentives to projects and civil groups, which take these initiatives. So basically, there are a few points which we need to keep in mind, which are picked up from the GRIHA certification for sustainable cities and communities. So GRIHA is Green Rating for Integrated Habitat Assessment, developed by TERI, the Energy Resource Institute, and presently it is under MOEF, Ministry of Environment and Forest, as a national rating system. So GRIHA rating system has a separate document for sustainable cities and communities. So from there, we have few conclusions which we can pick up in terms of stormwater management. One thing is stormwater management and water quality. One thing is the frequency of sampling and water quality tests should be at least every 6 months. Ensure that quality of 100% of water supplied meets the Central Public Health and Environmental Engineering Organization norms. 100% of the road lengths covered by stormwater drain network. Ensure civic bodies have marked the waterlogging points in the area that falls under its purview. Ensure that the area under the purview of civic bodies have a policy mandated the construction of rainwater harvesting recharge structure in building plan. At least 90% of the charges have been recovered by help of smart IT solutions. So these are some guidelines which can help in addition to the innovative technologies and methodologies to increase the catchment of stormwater and allow it to percolate so that the urban areas are not flooded. So in Bangalore, the person called Mr. Anand Maligawad, and not only in Bangalore, he is doing it all over India. He is regenerating desilting and regenerating the lakes in Bangalore, and you can see the before and after images of the lake, which is more of a urban design and ecology biophilic approach, where you regenerate the lake and you improve the flora and fauna possibility on the lake bed and water bed. So these are some of the projects which are happening in Bangalore, where the lakes are regenerated. So the next important aspect would be the wastewater management, where there is a lot of water, almost 75 to 85% of the water is domestic water, apart from the potable water for drinking. So we generally segregate the water use into brown water, and gray water and black water. Now, totally it makes up constitute to domestic wastewater. So as per the Central Pollution Control Board of India, out of around 72,364 million liter per day of sewage generated every day, only 20.235 million liters per day is treated, which is just around 28% of the total sewage being generated. So this is an alarming aspect, that when we don't have water, when we don't have good domestic water and its quality, and at the same time we are letting out the complete storm water into river and sea, and not recharging the ground and improving the water table. We also see that we don't have any proper mechanism in terms of treating the treating the wastewater and reusing it for maybe non-domestic purpose at least. But having said that, countries like Singapore have successfully adapted smart water wastewater managements, where 40% of their demand and 40% of the water demand are met by the treated water, and they are planning for 50% by 2030. And also, as many people would have heard, that New Water is the brand name given in Singapore for the treated water. And Chinese authority have issued new guidelines for the wastewater reuse, intensifying effort to combat the impending water crisis. So basically, they are planning to have treated water reuse for 25% or more by 2025, and it may go up to 35% in places like Beijing, Tianjin, and other regions where the water storage is even more severe. Okay, so we can see our other Southeast Asian countries taking intensive measures in terms of water conservation, and especially in terms of reusing the treating and reusing the wastewater. So this is the direction to go. So when we talk of a simple mechanism for where at the city level the wastewater is, basically you segregate the black water, which is from the WC, which can go to the public sewage treatment plant, and we separate the grey water, and you can pass it through a grey water treatment or a root zone treatment or other filtration method, natural filtration methods, and it can be used for agricultural production, and also urban farming. So, so this is something which is more a circular approach to water, where you are segregating it, treating it, and also treating it in a natural way, like root zone treatment and natural percolation beds, where you don't have energy consumption in that, you don't have pumps, you don't have motors and machines which do it, and it's a natural percolation which happens, and the water is ready to be used for at least the agricultural purpose. So, and having spoken about agriculture, our next before getting into urban farming, I would also like to highlight the research happening in IIT Delhi by people, by professors, where they are analyzing the use of treated grey water for curing of concrete, where wastewater is used for curing of concrete, because today's construction industry puts a huge load on the fresh water and the groundwater for just concrete curing purpose. So, and also India Green Building Council has already included this part of innovation, where they acknowledge use of STP treated water for concrete curing, if at all it is certified by a structural designer. So I think this is the way to go in terms of with using efficient curing techniques. It is also important to use recycled or treated water for concrete curing, because of the amount of huge water consumption which is there in the construction industry. So these are the kind of lake issues what were there in Bangalore. This is the Bedandur Lake, which was completely polluted by chemicals and detergents which are flushed out from the surrounding townships and residences. And today it has been completely cleaned, and they have got in nanobiotic technology where it purifies the water. These are water weed beds and weed plants which float as a bed along the lake, and it purifies the water. Apart from even passing guidelines that no one should be polluting the lake with the wastewater. This is a great initiative which has zero energy consumption, because it's a natural weed bed treatment which is done, and it's a zero energy approach. for purification of lakes. So, in terms of the sewage and wastewater treatment, the CPHEE has few guidelines for public toilets, signages, and modes and maintenance and cleaning, which can be followed in public areas when we call it a sustainable city or a community where people are not forced to, misuse the public amenities for things like urinating and polluting the whole urban setup and the infrastructure. So if these aspects are followed in the city planning, then it would reduce the risk to a great extent. And up to 100% of the properties have access to sewage services, and at least 75% of total sewage has been collected and treated. So these are the latest norms from CPHEE and also quoted in Griha certification for sustainable cities and communities, which can be taken as a guidance and for the future planning of the cities or solutions to the existing cities. So, as we move on to things like urban agriculture, so urban agriculture is one of the most ancient and passive and what you do say a regenerating way to include the community in terms of jobs and because there is lot of unemployment all around because today we really employ when we talk about employment, it's only about education and the education and degrees what we really value in terms of employment. So there is a lot of community and population who are really not having degrees, and they really don't find any place in the today's urban setup, or what you call it as a more progressive type of jobs. So that particular community needs to be addressed to involve them in terms of urban agriculture and train them and empower them to as a major part of the urban setup and leading towards sustainable community. So urban agriculture is one method what can be in the urban setup by the initiated by the people in the urban areas, integrating the communities who can get jobs, and they will get a feel of inclusiveness into the community, and eradicating to a certain extent the social and economical stigma what we have around in the urban setup. So urban agriculture would be a great idea for it, and maybe a starting step to for an inclusive community. So urban agriculture as such is agri and food is responsible for at least 37% of global carbon emission. And a lot of studies have shown that that reducing by urban agriculture, you can reduce yearly carbon emission by 205.1 per person, kg per person, contributing to the environmental behavior through urban garden acting as a catalyst. So basically, it has been proven by a lot of research internationally that when communities and or a person or any human being who gets into the role of agriculture and feeling himself more productive in terms of growing food for himself and to the community, has a more pleasant approach towards the community, and is more resilient to be living with the community, even with the different financial models and different financial hierarchy around him, because he feels, he feels valued, and he feels that he is contributing to the major part of the community and sustainability, because he is growing food and providing for the community. So it is not just about inclusive approach to what do you say, including the people who are jobless, but at the same time it is giving a new purpose to them, and they feeling that they are contributing to the society. So potential benefits of urban agriculture. So we have educational opportunities where youngsters can be trained on urban agriculture technically, and also the cultural tradition in terms of food can be maintained. You really so when the local people get into this, they will try to explore the ancient plants, vegetables, and things like that, and they will try to grow in the traditional way, and it reduces crimes, as I was mentioning. So it will have direct, it will lead youths in a right direction of sustainable community integrity rather than crime, then strengthens the community, then supports physical and mental health, supplements food security, helps with stormwater management, filters air, reduce the urban heat island effect, which I'll come to it in the later slides, provides habitat for pollinators, then supplemental income, increasing property values and skill development and workforce training. So these are all the advantages of going for urban agriculture with the zero food miles, where you don't need to transport food from long distances. So this is just an example in Asia where the whole university has a urban agriculture roof. So coming to heat island effect, today because of global warming and also a lot of urbanization happening, we find at least 3 to 10 degrees temperature difference between the urban areas and the suburban and the rural areas. So this is something which is a major concern, and what we talk about heat island effect in urban areas also has implication on energy consumption in the buildings, because your HVAC systems have to handle it because the air temperatures are increasing. So what actually is the urban heat island effect? It is basically the sun energy or the solar energy stored in terms of building vertical surfaces, roads and roofs of the building, which starts radiating in the evening when the outdoor ambient temperature reduces. It starts radiating into the environment, and it creates a urban heat island effect where your urban areas in the night are 5 to 10 degrees hotter than your suburban and rural areas. So in terms of having a comparison between a rural area and a city, you have less percolation of water and more runoff of water, and you have 3 to 10 degrees Celsius hotter air temperature compared to the rural areas. So heat absorption and retention, what I was mentioning about. So heat is absorbed by the hard surfaces in the urban areas and retained, and in the rural areas it's less retained because it has natural sinks of water, natural earth, and water table and other things. Plant transpiration and water evaporation from the soil is more. So water penetration is less in urban areas, more in the rural areas. So these are all the comparison between urban and rural areas in terms of urban heat island effect. So what all contributes, as I was mentioning, the heat from the road surfaces, temperature increase on the building surfaces, then heat rejection from the air conditioning units, then heat of vaporization, temperature goes down. These are some of the heat island effects, and at the same time, what happens in terms of the microclimate, in terms of water evaporation and cooling. So, so this is the guidelines. What needs to be framed in the sustainable city or a community also should integrate the building norms, where you are mandated to have natural elements like plants, trees, and shrubs covering your building. Or when you go more vertical, you don't have any other choice other than going for trees and shrubs in the balconies, as you see few examples which are already executed in the world. So it's not something which is a vague thing what people talk about. Projects have been executed that way, and it is practical and doable. So only thing is the design community and the local civic bodies needs to lay down norms for people to do it and developers to do it, so that we have a much resilient approach to urban heat island effect. So this is a small case study which was done in Delhi in 2012 to March 2017, where they found that there is an increased electricity consumption of 2,600 gigawatt hour, that is around 11.4% annually on the air conditioning loads in Delhi because of the urban heat island effect. So this is quite huge, and wasting around 11 to 12% of energy just in air conditioning because of rapid urbanization and urban planning and urban landscape not being handled properly. And also, as we know that a lot of vertical urbanization is happening, where the buildings are going more vertical because of a lot of huge occupancy density in the urban areas due to migration. There are solutions which we need for mitigation, and these needs to be mandated by the civic bodies so that everyone does it, and it's not left to each person's choices. So coming to the solid waste management, as we all know, this is a situation in most of the developing or underdeveloped countries where we don't have any proper mitigation measures for the solid waste management in the cities, and landfills are, becoming killers all around the world, where due to emission of methane and many other poisonous gases. So this is the statistics of how many tons per day different cities in India generate in terms of solid waste. And there are a few examples where 60% of the garbage component in Delhi is a wet waste. So biomethanization plant is a solution where extract methane from biodecomposition and generate power through steam, gas generators, and use it for your public and amenities power consumption, like street lighting, park lighting, and many other utility powers. What the government spends for the urban infrastructure can be supplemented to a certain extent by biomethanization and power generation. So, in terms of household waste, household and commercial restaurant and hotels are a big chunk in where solid waste, and market areas is a huge chunk in terms of waste and vegetable market. So it's like we know where the waste is and what types of waste they are, but only thing is we need to find out methods to treat it properly, reuse it to the circular economy, and mitigate the ill effects on the environment. Then this is an example in Pune where biogas generation, where the 300 meter cube per day is happening, and engine efficiency of 25%. Electricity generation is 1.5 kilowatt hour per cubic meter of biogas. So it's almost around 500 kilowatt hour is generated every day in this particular plant, and equivalent energy consumption of 450 kilowatt hour per day. And also they have a surplus of 400 kilowatt hour per day. So in a small way, these initiatives are being done in different cities in India. But at the same time, this needs to be made more smart and efficient with by the civic bodies, and at least they should be able to mitigate 20 to 30% of their public amenities and urban utility energy consumptions through such renewable energy generation methods. So this is one more example in Ludhiana, where you have an annual generation capacity of 6 million kilowatt hour, and you have a biogas generation of 10,000 cubic meter per day. So the power generation cost is around 3.14 kilowatt hour, which they are feeding into the power grid with a cost of 3.49 rupees per kilowatt hour. And also separate solid 70% moisture are sold to farm manure. So whatever is the output of the biomethanization plant, it has 70% moisture in it, and it is sold as farm manure for rupees 1,000 per metric ton. So basically, it is completely giving back to the earth and environment without any pollution done or without any byproduct getting into the environment and polluting it. And these initiatives had been is also taken in places like Jodhpur, where they are using vermicomposting for biodegradable vegetable waste and things like that, and giving it to farmers as fertilizer and manure. So this particular pneumatic waste collection system is something which has come up in the European countries during the COVID time, where you have pneumatic waste collection, where you say put the waste in a segregated way in the chutes installed in the public places, and it is taken to the centralized segregation yard, and it is segregated and it is recycled, and it gets into the circular process of recycling and regeneration. So this is one of the innovative methods of handling landfills when it comes to solid waste management. So this is not new, at least in America and Europe, where they once the landfill reaches its saturation, they fill it up with soil and earth and induce perforated extraction pipes into the deeper depths of the landfill, where the biodegradation and methane generation happens. And that particular biogas is extracted to the gas plant, and it is used as compressed landfill gas in the industrial facility, and compressed natural gas for CNG generation, and CNG boilers, and also it is sent for grid power generation. So today we are struggling so much saying landfills are the big killers, but whatever landfill has already happened, once it reaches saturation, this is a very innovative method. What can be done by the civic bodies of extracting methane and using the gas for different purposes, and also for the power generation. So there are different there are different waste disposable methods. One is the landfill, another one is the incineration, then composting or vermicomposting, or biogas generation. So you can actually opt for these things as civic bodies and see that the load on the landfill reduces. And anyway, today there is a lot of circular economy which is happening with the recyclable materials, as the previous speakers have also mentioned, and for executing it in the other parts of the world, that there is high potential in reducing at least the recyclable waste going to the landfill, and handling the biodegradable waste in a judicial manner. So these are next, coming to the sustainable transport, public transport. We need to ensure that we follow the National Transport Development Policy Committee, where for different city population levels in lakhs, you have minimum public transport percentage needs to be there. And with today's IoT and integrative technologies, you can actually make the whole system smart, so that people are aware of the available commuting measures and the time and duration and how far it is. And also in terms of new city planning, we need to take care of the proximity of different urban setups towards these transportation facilities. And you have ample transportation points where people can walk towards or bicycle towards it. That will also reduce the use of public use of biofuel based private transports, and encourage more public transport. So also there is a criteria of non-motorized facilities like walking and cycles. So basically, in the urban planning, we need to see that most of the amenities what people use, either being in office, being at home, need to be at least not more than 400 meters from their particular location. So apart from that, based on the city population, you have walking trip percentage and cycle trip percentages, which needs to be designed for, and you need to have proper cycle lanes and pedestrian lanes and crossing bridges, crossovers, and also if required, based on the climate requirement, there needs to be covered the bicycle and walking lanes, which leads to a more resilient urban framework and infrastructure where people don't hesitate to walk or bicycle if the urban infrastructure and roads and lanes are designed accordingly. So promoting use of renewable energy systems in areas under purview. So basically, as we know, renewable energy systems, we have solar hot water, solar PV, wind, and geothermal energy, and also hydropower, and newly into the research is the ocean energy also. So there are a lot of renewable energy being explored, but at the same time, renewable energy cannot be the starting step for sustainable energy management. The starting step would be you need to have smart appliances at home and offices and smart metering, energy storage, and then you need to optimize your renewable energy. So I always say that renewable energy is not the first step for your renewable for your sustainability approach in terms of energy. It is the last step. So why I would say that is because when you design a building or a urban infrastructure in an energy efficient method, by taking care of many things during the design stage and design execution stage, you will be putting less financial expenditure on your renewable energy, because renewable energy, everything said and done, would be a costly affair if you haven't optimized your building design and the urban infrastructure design, where many things could have been done in a natural way, as we were mentioning about having landscape and reduced heat island effect and things around the building or in a campus or in a city. And if you don't handle those preliminary aspects of going movement towards energy efficiency, sizing your renewable energy just for a conventional unmanaged building or urban infrastructure would not serve the purpose, because at one point of time you'll start feeling it's a costly affair and things may not get executed, right? So you need to handle the first things first and then jump into the remaining load requirement onto renewable energy. So, and also in the urban setups, there has to be an integrated grid management system where it's a smart grid, where the energy consumption of the city in terms of grid power and renewable energy power needs to be monitored and learned from it. And your power generations has to reduce or increase accordingly based on the demand. And this would happen majorly through microgrid controllers and smart metering and the very interactive system between the renewable energy and the power grid. So also this will reduce the power generation if there is no much consumption. So this will put lesser load on the coal power plants and the thermal power plants. So basically today, most of the projects, though they are sustainable and they are doing green buildings and sustainable campus, they are not able to take the advantage of it to the full potential, because there is no smart grid or the interactive grid. So if I'm telling my building is just consuming 100 kilowatts, whereas a conventional building would have consumed 200 kilowatts, still I would be paying demand charges to the electricity board, because they have minimum demand charges to be paid based on the power generation what they do, irrespective of what you use and what you don't use. So there needs to be a city level and state level and a country level scenario where smart grids are integrated with each other, and you have a correlation between consumption and generation, which will lead to less load on the carbon emissions at a macro level. So we came across in coastal climates and many places internationally where they use cold seawater as a replacement for chilled water, because as you go deep in the sea, the water temperatures are really cold. It goes to 4 degrees, 2 degrees, 7 degrees. So which corresponds with the chilled water temperature what we generally use for air conditioning. So yeah, and this is more of a renewable source, because the water is circulated back to the depth of the sea, and again it exchanges heat with the environment, but in a very controlled way. So this is one of the methods which is under innovation and pilot, where seawater is used for air conditioning rather than chilled water, which is generated out of a air conditioning and refrigeration system, which is energy intensive. So last but not the least, this is more of a topic where we really don't understand the effect of having a lot of light pollution in the urban setup, where you see the different skies. Here in the urban setup, you really don't see the stars and astronomical studies happening because of the light pollution due to artificial lighting, in terms of street lighting, facade lighting, and building lighting. So dark sky condition is polluted by artificial lighting in the urban areas. So dark sky pollution is not only related to just sky pollution, but it is also related to around 35% of light is wasted due to unshielded and poor aimed outdoor lighting, and 13% of the residential energy used in US is for outdoor lighting. So there is a lot of CO2 emission and wastage of electricity by using high wattage lamps in the outdoor, and so the more percentage of it getting thrown to the sky and creating light pollution, whereas you can easily eliminate the use of this 35% of energy in lighting, and it will directly give you energy saving and cost saving, and in turn reduce carbon emission. And on the right, you see what are the different preferred and unpreferred types of luminaires, where last one is the more preferred, what we call it as a full cutoff, and it's good for controlling the night sky pollution. Yeah, so I think I have broadly covered all the urban level aspects of water management and energy management and waste management and transportation. So I would be glad to take some questions, if any.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kumar. That was really helpful and really informative. And thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for participating in this knowledge sharing Global Sustainable Development Summit. Special thanks to all the speakers who have shared their valuable insights with us today. With this, we come to an end for today's summit. We will meet again tomorrow, 28 October 2023, with our third day of the summit. Once again, I would like to thank you for joining us today from the entire DCPIT team. Thank you.